Where are you at?
I'm in Vegas.
Mm. Cheers to that. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Space.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll probably be out there within the 10 years, I'd say. It's a great state of Nevada.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I'll be there. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, if you guys are ever up, hit me up.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
Vegas.
I like the I like the brewery right outside the strip. That one with like the atom bomb like logo.
Oh yeah.
What the fuck is that one called, man? I love that place though. It's got a duck. It's like or something. It's got like this kind of like nuclear testing site name. It's right off the strip. I haven't been there in years, but I love that place.
I love the Vegas atom bomb. There's a lot of that, you know.
Oh yeah, lean into
Atomic
it.
City
Yeah.
shit. Yeah, it's cool.
We
went to Hoover Dam last time we were there. I didn't realize it was so close. It's great.
Yeah.
It was epic. It was absolutely insane.
For sure. And they're like all this kind of like climate change stuff now too, where it's the water is like running out.
I know. Yeah,
It's like,
we heard
we
all
don't know
about
what to do. We don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe you could get some more water.
Yeah, dude, like fucking.
Heavy.
Bored.
Heavy.
I am heavy.
Bored.
I may say that the male is entirely hostile. No! Dinner.
Resources.
Life, friends, is boring. We must not say so.
Like Chinatown, dude. Just fucking start like piping it in like all the weird gangsters did in Chinatown. It's like, what, you tell me there's no mobster that could procure water for you in Vegas?
Just host the Olympics in Vegas. There'll be water somehow.
exactly.
Good idea.
Yeah.
The Winter Olympics too. Be like, hey, make it snow here.
Snow. That'd be sick. Like half pipe of snow. Dude.
With
The
the
Winter Olympics in
mountains.
Vegas would be so tight. Winter in Vegas. Oh.
Well, we're Las Vegas Raiders fans, as you probably know. Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's yeah. So that's
Yeah, they're calling me.
We still haven't been to a game. I haven't been to a game out there yet. I just drove by the stadium. Yeah,
I haven't been to a game, but I went to that stadium for the first time last year. My wife and I went to see Elton John during his like farewell.
sick.
Brick Road.
That's cool. Hell yeah.
It's an incredible stadium. Probably the best stadium I've ever been. I mean, obviously because it's so fucking new, but like,
Yeah.
it's
No,
incredible.
there was a long time of NFL stadiums that were just so bad, like, and like just MLB stadiums for like a 10-year period in like the 2010s. But now everything they make is so sick. So I went to SoFi with my dad in LA. He's a Rams fan. It looks stupid from the outside. You're like, oh, this is gonna be like some like Apple Store ass like stadium. Amazing. It was like it was seriously like, I don't know, just the fact that people design things like it's like this is designed for football, like for you to like just enjoy football, rather than like, oh, it's dual purpose, we're gonna have Taylor Swift, you know, and they're gonna do all that stuff. But like SoFi was like, no, this is amazing, and that's with all the student loan money, you know. So SoFi,
for sure.
So
I was
the screen,
Vegas is taking all of the Oakland teams right now. Like Oakland's not having anybody left soon, so
I'm glad they're at least going to the same city though. Like for
That's
me,
cool.
it's like, because like I remember for a while they were like the A's could go to Nashville, and I'm like, that would suck ass if they went to I mean, nothing against Nashville, but I'd rather have it all consolidated in one relocation.
Yeah.
100%, dude. I mean, you see some of those designs for the athletics that they're like trying to like put into like Vegas. It looks kind of goofy, but then it's also like some of the ideas of it, because like, okay, you're gonna have a baseball team out here where it's like 110 degrees in like all of the summer, where most of the sports being played in summer. They're like, okay, so we have to have some type of like indoor enclosure, like otherwise people are gonna be like, you have like old people dropping dead in the stands or whatever. You
Absolutely.
know, like,
you have to play all night games too. You'd have to do all night games, like how the Texas Rangers when they played outside was kind of a similar thing. They would always start like minimum 5 p.m. Even then it's still hot, but like they would never do like a 105 day game in Texas after a certain point of the year. Because also conversely, like you could also get like a really nice April night game in Vegas. It'd probably be a little cold, you know.
Yeah. And I guess the hockey team, I am wrecking the hockey team T right now, but like,
sick. nights.
I'm not even a huge hockey guy, but like when you live here, there's like my wife will be like, "Oh, this was like $3 at Target," and she's like, "I gotta see each one." Like after they won the cup, I was like, "Oh, okay, okay."
Dude, they're
That's
good.
crazy.
They're good.
Expansion
They're good
team
as
winning
hell.
a championship. Yeah, that's wild. That's
And they were in the finals the first year. I think they were there, or the second year, like when they were like in the finals, which is unheard of. It was amazing.
Yeah, dude, I'm too fucking American to like give a shit about hockey.
Yeah,
But, like,
it's not.
Hell yeah.
I know it a little bit because like lacrosse was like big where I grew up, so I'm like, okay, it's
Yeah.
kind of like lacrosse, like the same type of thing, but like on ice. No.
Yeah.
But like that's the only way I follow it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. No, I know. I'm the same way. In San Jose, we have a hockey team, and like they're cool. It's like fun when they're in the playoffs and stuff. It's like a festive event, but then nobody gives a shit like when they're not winning, because it's a deeply un-American sport. You watch, just like it's deep. If it is American, it's very Yankee, very very coastal Yankee sport. If it is American at all, and then you're like, oh, we're in California, dude.
It doesn't translate to TV. Is the problem too. Like going to a game is always
terrible,
sick, but
dude, it's so terrible. Like, because everybody thinks it's just fighting and like hitting people, and no, it's just guys falling and failed attempts at things.
Yeah,
like
before
failed
HD, like before HD TV, like what was it, like 2007 or whatever, when everything switched over to like HD antennas. Like before that, like you could even fucking see the puck, like because like the grainy ass TV,
terrible.
like pre 2007 TV, it was like hard to follow. Like what, you can't even see it. Like
the hardest thing to do is announce hockey on the radio, because I used to do like radio, and there would be guys like announcing college hockey on the radio, and it's so hard to convey what's actually happening, because like especially when you can't hear it, because a lot of times you'll hear something like you'll hear it smack against the boards. Okay, that's where the puck is, and it's like on the radio. Like, dude, it's insane narrating that.
Did you guys ever watch Real Sports? R.I.P.
Is it not on anymore?
Well, it just finished like its last season or whatever.
Wow. Yeah, Brian Gumble, of course.
They had like a segment on the last season where they had this like guy in Canada who was like some like hockey announcer, and the story was like he's so good at announcing hockey. Like that was the story. And then of course he's like diverse or whatever. He was like some immigrant to Canada or whatever.
I kind of respect that Real Sports is gone now, because Frank DeFord was like the guy, dude. Frank DeFord, the fucking like weird like Billy. He was like that weird eccentric like old guy that they used to tap into, very scary like old looking guy. And I loved him, and I think he died like not long ago. And then once he died, I'm like, nah, I got no interest in that show anymore. Because he used to really be a good like boots on the ground guy. And he like again, it's not like again, this is a whole different conversation. But the millennial journalists who have to pretend they don't actually like the sport they cover, they have to like have some sort of disdain for it. Like, oh, another low scoring baseball game that I covered. Like, okay, wonderful, cool. Do you not enjoy baseball at all, or what? Yeah, do you not? Is it
like pitching?
Yeah. You could do a way worse job, trust me, because like I do, and yeah, they get really mad, or like, but those guys just had this genuine love for the game, like even just the dumbest parts of it, and they loved it so much, and the end of an era. Jeez, end of an era.
My brother and I would always clown on it, where like like I mean I loved the show, and I'd always like kind of catch it like when it was on, but like. Just the way they'd always set up the stories at like Real Sports. My brother would always be like Brian Gumble. He'd be like, he's like, and he was wrongfully imprisoned for 25 years. But now he's found solace.
Why does
playing
he
the
talk
Italian
like
sport of bocce ball?
He talks like a black. He talks like his cadence was a black Tucker Carlson. It was so crazy, like a black liberal Tucker Carlson,
dude,
with his
fat Brian Gumble.
Hockey. Yeah, he's like, hockey. What's the weight limit on a player for hockey?
Jane Thomas finds out.
Yeah,
for sure.
Andrea Kramer, my best friend. Who can I talk to?
They were losing it towards the end. Like the last season, they did like a whole episode on dogs. They're just like, we love our dogs.
Or they try to do like the Reddit young people interesting stuff that like it's like we want boomer stuff. Give me more boomer stuff.
Right.
Come on, like
I want the guy with one leg that's like conquering the Special Olympics or whatever, like skiing.
Yeah. Or them getting really excited when like a football player went to Yale and stuff. Like that's like boomer stuff. Where they're like, he went to Yale and he plays linebacker. They can't. Or West Point, any kind of stuff like that.
Army,
like,
number
Air
one
Force
pick in the
Academy.
draft.
And I'll tell you what, he's not gonna have any trouble picking up the playbook because he went to Princeton.
Yeah, there was
they love doing stuff.
growing up in Baltimore, there was, the Ravens. There was a couple years ago, I guess probably a decade ago now, they had like this offensive lineman that was like getting a math PhD. Do you remember that? And there was like all kinds of like Sports Illustrated articles, and there was like pictures of him next to like a dry erase board, like doing equations.
Juszczyk was Ivy League, right? And
he was
Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then the Service Academy. There was Alejandro Villanueva, who was like this massive, like I forget what he was. I think he was like Navy or something, and it was like he's like 6'10", dude. I'm like, you're 6'10" in the Navy? That's insane. Like I feel like ergonomically, I don't
like
need you in the. I don't feel like I feel like in the ergonomically speaking, like I think that would push you towards football as well. Yeah.
All right.
Crazy.
Yeah. Switching gears, I guess. Fucking Chromosome 6. All right. We're back with another episode of Heavy Board, and I'm joined by some special guests today. The boys of Rare Candy, Glen and Psi, a podcast that I listen to every week, and all of you should too. Link in the description. That's a hint, listeners. But today they're here to discuss an important book with us, Chromosome 6 by Robin Cook. Glen and Psi, thanks so much for coming on.
Salute, man. Salute. Yeah. Absolutely. And for those who don't know, there's a long-standing history between this podcast. We haven't been on this podcast before, but you've come on our fiction program a few times, and to talk about William Gibson's pattern recognition and Robert Marasco's burnt offerings. And then you also wrote the first piece under your dead name, but under the first piece ever published at rarecandy.substack.com about credit card chip readers.
Yeah, dude, this still pisses me off every day when I'm going into some store.
I hate them.
Has those.
I will say that the tap. I think I might have got into the tap a little bit.
Same. Yeah. I have to.
That was a good adjustment.
Does it work for you guys? It works for me like half the time.
Yeah. It depends. Yeah. I have another thing that I'm working on right now about like pet stores. Whenever I'm fucking in a pet store, there's always like, it seems to be like a bunch of like Gen Xers and boomers that just don't know how stores work. Like
you are right out. You're speaking my language here. I swear, in Portland, the pet store, the niche pet store thing is a thing. And I swear to God, not to go all COVID right off the bat, but no one masks harder than the niche pet store employee in Portland, Oregon. Dude, they are harder than anyone I've seen, like nurses, doctors, anyone, dude. It's the pet store owners and employees love their N95s more than any other group. It's insane. I don't know what the deal with that is. It's crazy.
Well, it's good that you did the segue to COVID already, because I think COVID's going to be coming up during this podcast here, listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We have some overlap in the audience. Like, I like to think I have a mixed audience where I have a lot of, people from like our spheres of hanging out and kind of the media market on Twitter there. But then like, I also have people that are just into like, poetry and shit. And they like hear us talk about some of this stuff. They're like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are these guys going off about? I'm like, the truth is what we're going off about. But yeah. Check out Rare Candy, guys. Yeah, let's plug that real quick. Let's plug it. So give people, just the people that wouldn't know, what is Rare Candy Industries, all that kind of stuff.
I can answer every question, I feel like, except that. I just still trying to figure out like what it is, because it's, I mean, truly, if you listen every week, it's something different almost every week. Like we might get in like a phase for a couple of weeks on something or a rhythm, but I mean, look, I'll put it this way: we've covered the history of vaccinations, and we've also covered Prince. So and all in between too. And it's not a podcast there. It's like, hopefully I hear the most facts about things. Like that's one criticism I get. It's like, they didn't really get to this until 17 minutes in. I don't care at all. I'll wait longer next time, actually, so I get into that. It's a very fun, meandering, conversational, horsing around, and also getting active. That's our two things. We horse around and then we get active. Sometimes there's the middle of the diagram. I can't really define either of those, but just press play. Go to rarecandy.substack.com. Psi writes there. You write there.
I do.
Andrew. And then that's where all our premium stuff is, and we cover fiction a lot too. Also some nonfiction. Psi's book club is dropping very soon, and or if depending on when this comes out, it might already be out. And called Psyops, where he talks about a lot of his hippie stuff on there. But that's on our premium feed, which gets updated every week. So your $5 actually, we charge you like $1.25 an episode, essentially. So pretty good.
Yeah, and you guys are up to like 4 shows now in total, right? Like,
it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't have a life. I don't have much of a life. It's but you hit 30, dude. You start realizing you're just like, man, I've done a lot of the fun stuff that I want to do, like IRL. and I kind of just am like, I kind of want to just talk to really cool people, because the last 4 years there were a lot of people that aren't as cool to me anymore. I'll just say that much.
for sure.
IRL. I think everybody can relate to that a little bit. I'm not saying you need to be a little hermit crab, but this has been a fun way to kind of like have like play dates scheduled. Like you feel like it's your mom saying like, hey, so and so is really into this, and you can talk about that. Like when she's making you friends with the weird kid, and that's what I feel like podcasting is, and it's quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and I love it. I mean, just for listeners that don't know, like I'm a regular listener to Rare Candy, again, contributor to the Substack whenever I have something for them and stuff. So yeah, that'll be linked in the description. Go click it, check it out. But also just like when I discovered you guys, like just how important, like at that time, like finding Rare Candy, and like it was 2020, of course, when we're all trapped inside here, and like it was you guys on the Fed Post, and just like listening to those podcasts, like I was just like, oh my God, like finally, like there's something out there that is just like not doing this bullshit, not tiptoeing around all this bullshit, like not being like, oh yeah, oh well, we can't say that, and oh we can't do that. And I mean, there's some precursors, right? Like, the kind of Twitter discourse where like all the podcasts circle around at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
but yeah. So I've been a listener now for like 4 years almost. I wasn't like right at the beginning. Like I didn't discover you guys till like
nobody did.
Yeah,
we didn't discover us. Yeah, until like It's like,
true Rupert Pupkin hours, king of comedy, thinking you're on Carson, and 4 SoundCloud robots listen, like nudes in bio. That was like our listener base, and it was like until like episode 50 or 60, because we would just record every other day, because we both were out of work for a little bit, and we would just record like every other day. We already had a natural chemistry just from knowing each other, so that was not something we had to build. And then it would just be all the time. And then eventually, like I think we finally asked our first guest, who ended up being Alex Gutentag, who's just a monster. Like at the time, she was just a kind of a local writer writing in this publication. I have no idea if the Bellows is even still around, but she had written this article in the Bellows that was just about virtual learning. And him and Psi and I don't have kids, so it was kind of like the one gray area we hadn't covered with COVID was the virtual learning, which arguably was one of the top things, if not the top thing, of like what got ruined and is still ruined. Is that virtual learning, and just kind of what it did to a young developing generation. And she was the first person to agree to come on, and see her now. I mean, she just like writes these massive, amazing, like sprawling pieces about these things. And ever since then, it kind of gave us a little bit of confidence to be like, oh, people actually like might want to come talk to us.
It is crazy how that works with like when you're doing a podcast. I've been doing it just over 2 years now, and like you guys go even harder than me, because you got like 4 shows now, and you do a weekly show. I do like bi-weekly, but it's like after like it takes like 60 episodes before you start to see a bump. Like I've just recently seen like a bump, and like people are like take you seriously now because you have like a body of work behind you.
Well, what's crazier is when what's great for us, it was like in the beginning you're like, is anyone listening to this? And now it's got this gravity. Obviously we're not huge or whatever, but it's got this gravity where a couple of thousand people will listen to you on, like, and that's even crazier to me. It's like, what? It's like we could just pop off and talk about like what's something crazy that we talked about like over the last couple of weeks, the dumbest shit, and people will be like, oh, that was great, and you're like, it's just dumbass conversations we would have had.
Dude, the moon arc you guys have been going on, the moon denial arc, I've been loving it. It's very early Rogan. It's like
huge influence there. I mean, there's no. I mean, we're like bros. I mean, that's just it is what it is. Like Shane Gillis, Matt McCusker, Joe Rogan. I mean, all that stuff is there, but we are also just a bit different than those guys too, in terms of where we go. And like I said, we can sit down and have a serious conversation with people. And there were people for a while, I think, kind of scared to talk to us. Like I think especially when you get into like the holistic community, it's weird. There's like this dichotomy of like when you want to have fun people on, like fun active people on, they see you as like the holistic podcast that they have to be super serious on, because all this is predicated on the fact that nobody actually listens, instead of like they try to find your reputation rather than actually listening. And then on conversely, the holistic people are like super serious about everything, and they're like, well, you guys drop some slurs, you know what I mean, and things like that, or you guys are like right-wing propaganda, which I don't think we are, but that whatever, it's up to them to decide. So it was weird. There was this kind of like territory that there's familiarities, but I feel like we were carving this weird niche for a while. But now I think a lot of people just come on now, which is fun. And they say, what do you want to talk about? I go, we'll just be there. Like we'll have some fun. Like we're not gonna like throw weird like quizzes at you. And like there's a lot of source material now since like Gain of Fiction started. But a lot of times I'm like, hey, come on and horse around with us, and we'll get to some really fun stuff eventually. But there is that kind of like icebreaker thing you have to have where you got to make somebody laugh in the first 5 minutes, or else they don't really want to talk to you for an hour.
Yeah. Sure. There's like that warm-up space like we're doing now.
Yeah. No, but I know you. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I know we've spoken, and like you're very personable. So, but sometimes you'll have a guy like a super like anon Twitter guy on who's like wants to use their voice modulator. They'll be like, "Are you going to edit this out?" I'd be like, "No." Like, please. I like. Do you?
Getting more and more tired of that. Dude.
I can't do it. Yeah. Max Blumenthal, one of our first like massive guests. He straight up says on his show, he's like, I don't let people not come on camera. Like if they don't want to put their camera on, he's like, you're not doing my show. He's he's just one of those, like he's at that level where he can do that. Cause he's like, who am I talking? I want to see who I'm talking to. Like, what the hell? And we're not there yet. And I don't necessarily find that, to be mandatory, but there is a time where it's just like, dude, like if we can't, someone's will come on our show like 6 times and they'll be scared to show us their face. And I'm just like, not that look, when it's YouTube, we're going to put it on YouTube. That's fine. You don't want to be on YouTube. I have no problem with that. But I'm like, dude, we're the bros. Like you think right now, like the minute we're not going to screenshot and send it to like Quantico, dude, like relax.
It is interesting. Like having like, I've had a few anonymous people from our kind of sphere on there because it's always weird. Like all these anonymous people, but then they're like these people that are like in the same field as me, like that came in and they're just like, don't want to show their face. Cause whatever, there are like professional consequences, even though it's like less than it was at like the peak. It's interesting, just like they kind of want to dox to you, like they kind of like want to like face dox to you, like they'll just like pop up. They're like, "Whoa, okay, that's what you look like." Like you didn't have to if you didn't want to, because I didn't really fuck with the video side of stuff. It's just another thing that I'd have to fucking edit, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. But
it's uploading video sucks when you have like work in the morning and stuff. It's horrible. I have to leave there's so many nights where I have to leave my laptop open like overnight and just like hopefully it didn't like close out in the morning, and like I can go to okay. At 35%, that means I can go to bed, and then like in the morning it should be uploaded, and that part sucks. But yeah, just I remember like back in the early days, like we'd have a guy accidentally turn his camera on and freak out. He'd be like, oh man, I'm like, dude, we're not even recording, relax. Like I get it that there are weirdos out there, but if you make something, it's one thing if you're just like an anon on Twitter just trying to have some fun, and then we have you on the show and you're not promoting anything, you're just like, no, I'm just gonna go on the show. I respect the fact that, but when you're like creating stuff to put out into the world, I am so vain that I'm like, I would hate for like another persona to get a credit for what I do. I would hate that. Like to just be like, oh man, wow, that weird Dustin Hoffman avatar from Marathon Man, like that with like a weird literary name that you go by that it sounds kind of weird. That guy's really cool, and like I don't like that like behind the Wizard of Oz like curtain mentality. It's just not where
it's a big deal. I'm kind of in the middle because I'm not like using real names or anything, but also I don't care if it came out. And I like Adam Lair's thoughts on this, where he's like, stop being a pussy, just fucking do. And, but I do respect people's right to be, I'm definitely lean more the Lair side. It's like, come on, like, I know this will come out someday, and it's not that big a deal,
What's the goal, right? What's the goal? Like at some point, like if you want your product to truly succeed, to have a Twitter fan base, to go beyond that, to go to like the YouTube level, to go to the this and that, they're gonna want to see you eventually, and it's kind of weird when people. I look, if some people just want to have a fun podcast that's cool on like Twitter, that's fine. The Twitter audience is cool, but they're not that faithful. The Twitter audience is not a faithful audience at all. Like YouTube is completely different, because YouTube, they will be extremely critical, but like it feels like a passing comment from like a driver that you'll never see again. But like Twitter, like where they're just like, this is terrible, I hate this, you guys suck, but then they don't like ever check on you again. But like the Twitter people still hate you and then check on you all the time, and then like they'll come in there, they'll bounce in and out. They're like, well, you had me. I love these episodes, but not these. I'm just like, all right. What can I do there?
Twitter, Twitter it's like Napa Valley microclimates for wine or something. It's just so these tiniest little differences, like cause these immense, fallouts between people. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, when is this like this in any other aspect of life? This is so
very
weird.
feminine.
But that's why we switched to books. That's why we switched to books, dude.
Yeah,
that's why I
100%.
switched to books, because I'm like, okay, I can get away from a screen. Now I read Chromosome 6 on a Kindle for the first time.
Nice.
So the screen was there. It's not the same. It's not it's not the same as a phone screen. I can confirm it's not the same. That's what because again, the texts don't pop up like an iPad and stuff and all that. And it is still, you can put the light on super dim, which I do. And I did that. But for the thing with like Gain of Fiction, I was like, I am getting smarter from talking to smart people, but I want to be able to get smarter through fun narratives and fun things and it does. You could definitely point to when I started doing Gain of Fiction. I do think I got like 7 or 8 IQ points smarter. Like truly, like I think it comes out in there. And it just keeps you away from. I like discourse. I don't think it's bad inherently, but I don't want to just be trapped in it and a victim of it. And I don't want to have to be like, oh, hopefully something happens this week so we can do a podcast episode.
Yeah,
and
for sure. It's like
for having like a source material, and it's like fun. Apparently men don't read fiction. That's always what I've heard.
Yeah.
But now a lot of men that are in our sphere are reading a lot of fiction, thanks to people like Jack, thanks to us, I think, and you and all these other people that cover fiction, Art of Darkness and stuff. Like I think a lot of men are reading fiction now, and I think it's good.
Yeah, and it's always like this kind of discovery thing where like, I mean, there's studies that show like if you just like read books to your kid before they can even read, like they're smarter when they grow up. Like
that's how I
they learn
that's
how
how
to read
I grew up
better.
poor. I grew up poor with like service industry, like retail kind of like parents, but my mom still is very smart, but like she read to me like just constantly. She would make me read like militantly to the point where I enjoyed it, and I went into kindergarten knowing how to read, which is like a great it sounds, oh wow, great, you peaked there, Rockney, but like the no, it was just like there were like kids that were like really struggled with that stuff, and it's very true. It's like it is truly fundamental, and I think nowadays just to get off of a screen and not be a slave to whatever the current thing is, it is nice to just go read like something from 1992 or whatever,
right.
and just read it, go into that world. You realize. The world has changed a lot, but also the same problems you have now were also problems back then when you read these things. So it's fun, it's refreshing to do stuff like that.
For sure. And something like Chromosome 6, listeners out there, this is first published in 1997. I think we all probably read like the mass market paperback version, which was like a year later, like 1998, that it was originally printed. But it's out there. Berkeley is the press. And I always like to start this off with just, guys, what is your history with this book or Robin Cook and all that?
Psi, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this and the Crichton movie, the Coma thing, and then just reading this was honestly, I think, my main introduction. I can't say that it was a vaguely familiar name, but I wasn't like a huge follower of that, but I'm glad I got into it because I've always been into genetic engineering and critical of that kind of scene, exactly, with some nuances I'm sure we'll get into, and Glenn and I were talking about already. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I would say. And I love Coma, the film. That was great.
Coma is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable movie.
Yeah.
Unbelievable movie. I knew his friendship with Michael Crichton, which I think is and look, man, if you got close to him, I'm forever jealous of you because it'll just never happen for me.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I just medical thrillers. I mean, like there needs to be a resurgence in them. Like it sucks that you don't. Are there medical thrillers anymore? Contemporary medical thrillers, or is it just Stephen King crying that people don't take the newest Pfizer thing like in his new fantasy?
That's the thriller. Why won't they make it?
Yeah. Is that the medical thriller? Is the guy in the guy in like the
MAGA hat?
The MAGA hat flannel just dying like, I wish I took the new substance X shot.
It is strange. My history with this actually is a strange story. Like the first time I ever read this was in high school because it was assigned summer reading, like sophomore year of high school.
That's tight.
Like and I kind of forgotten all about it, but then like when I was just thinking, I'm like, I got to have Rare Candy guys on here. I was like, oh, this will be the best book for Rare Candy to come on for the first time at least. Hopefully I have many more. And then rereading it now, I didn't have a whole lot of history with Robin Cook beyond that. Like, I really haven't read any of his other stuff, but I was just looking at this guy wrote a shitload of books. This guy wrote like an insane amount of books, and just like, but I was just thinking, you saying that, Glenn, like, where are these kind of like doctor fucking medical thriller writers? You know, like Crichton, Cook. Seems like they were much more like prevalent than they are now. Like, who's the doctor doing it now? That was like,
doctors and nurses are tired now. They're just tired. You know, have you heard that? Have you heard this? They're
overworked, and the emergency rooms are crammed. They can't write books anymore. They can't write medical thrillers simply because the emergency rooms are too crammed because people took the horse pace, dude.
And I feel 90s, like that 90s doctor era. You became a doctor in that era, so you could work 2 days a week and fuck around and write books for the rest of your stuff. Like I have a dentist kind of in my family, semi-connected in Florida, and he's a great dude, a great family, and he literally just works 2 days a week and gardens the rest of his time in like the Florida paradise. You know, it's fucking sick, dude. I'm like, that's what these guys should be doing, man.
Or golfing. Yeah, like I had a physical. Mm-hmm. I had a physical like last year or whatever, and like the doctor I had, he was a newer doctor for me, and he was just like this like millennial guy, and he was just like had that like wide-eyed like camp counselor look about him, and I was like dude, I kind of want you to like hurry, kind of like almost feel like I'm inconveniencing you because you got a tea time in like an hour, you know what I mean? And then you quick, I want like bring it back, dude. I want a thriller of a physician. I want him to just have his own medical thriller happening in the background, because exactly, because in the 90s, dude, you had ER Crichton, just like ER was popping. Which is based off of his book The 5 Patients, I believe. And then you have Robin Cook, who's writing a million. I didn't even know he was part of the whole Contagion thing. I didn't know that about Robin Cook, the Contagion series. This is book 3 of 14, I believe, of the Contagion series. And you notice in the book, because they're like, and Laura, you remember when you got caught in that coffin by Arturo Falcone, Italian man or something?
5 years ago.
I'll never forget. And so you're like, that
makes sense.
Too.
Yeah, that's
now
it's coming together.
I guess he's like, I still want to hunt everybody down.
It didn't deter me at all. I guess we should say
we don't have it. We have more pharmaceutical interventions now. We have more medical stuff. Every commercial on TV is pharmaceutical, yet no medical thrillers. Did we solve everything? Is that what happened? Everything's just great now?
Yes.
We solved everything? Yeah, okay, got it.
And there's I guess less audience, but still, like, these were all bestsellers. But I guess it is, we should say it's like part of like a series of, I guess it's like the Jack Stapleton, Laurie Montgomery are the two like forensic, like autopsy, like doctors that like could go throughout all those books or something, or those characters that'll be coming up, listeners. But so this is like part of a running series, but like most of these kind of books, like you don't have to read the whole series. You can jump in and out, and like you still get the gist. Just those little like Glenn said, little memories that they just like, oh, remember when you were nailed in that coffin? And they just like
they don't even do the flashback either. Like they just like that was when you tried to solve that thing and it went really bad. And those Italians. Those damn medical Italians, dude. I was dying at all the Italian stuff. Before I picked up the book on Goodreads, most people like the book, but some people are like, the Italian stuff is just ridiculous. I'm like, I know it rules though. Like it is, because so to set the scene for the book, this is about we start out, it's very like Crichton-esque, where there's like 4 different scenarios happening, and a chapter divides each kind of person that it's told through. You have one guy, Kevin, who like wakes up on an island. He's like, shit sucks, dude. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm on this island doing God knows what, but this is how I'm making a bunch of money, but it just feels wrong. I'm doing these experimental surgeries, these kind of we're very vague at the beginning, and then there's smoke coming off the island and it's driving him insane. You have the big wigs, I'm already forgetting the guy's name, Raymond Lyons, Dr. Raymond Lyons, and Cabot, the guy's last name Cabot. All these guys are like, something's going wrong, man. And then you have a mobster who was murdered, and there's an autopsy that just cannot be done on this guy. Cannot be done, no matter what, because they will find this experimental surgery being done on him. And there's just a big time Olive Garden ass like crime family that is
in the 1990s New York, that Italian mob is so notorious.
just it's so funny. It's very boomer. It's charmingly boomer core NCIS tier novel that goes down like the most delicious sweetened drink ever. Like,
which I always ask next. Yeah, like how did it read for you guys?
Like nothing, dude. I thought I was tripping that I wasn't gonna finish it in time. I'm not a slow reader, but I just know when I have to talk about something, I don't want to like blow through it. Yeah. But I was like, okay, this is a decent amount of pages, man. Like, but on the Kindle they give you the percentage, and there was a day where I was like, I think last Sunday I read 150 pages of it, and it didn't feel like I dedicated my entire day to reading either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a bit of a journey figuring out how I was gonna read this book. It's kind of incidental to my thoughts on it, but it's funny in and of itself. I had it in my cart for a while. I was gonna buy it, and then I was like, let me just, because I work alone most of the time at work, so I'm like, let me see if there's an audiobook on YouTube.
There was,
and then for free, and I was like, okay, I YouTubed it. And I was like, okay, there is, good. I'm just gonna crank it out during work, and then I start to do it at work. I waited a little bit because there's an audiobook. I'm like, oh, I got this, no worries. And then I turn it on, and it's the AI voice audiobook. That. No. And I was like, no. So then I had to download I could have just bought it, but I downloaded like this library app reader thing, and then got a copy on there. So I was just like plowing through it on my phone and then the iPad and shit. So that was kind of fun. But it was definitely like a letdown when they didn't have the audiobook, because it was just, I was like, because I've done that before where you power through it with the AI audiobook. Oh, but you always feel like a fucking robot afterwards. It's just like,
Cook is able to hold your Cook is a bestseller. That's one thing about Cook is he is writing bestsellers with the intention of them being bestsellers, to where there's certain authors that I don't think this is pretentious at all, but there's certain authors like, you're reading every word of what I say, or else you're fucked. And it's like, my prose will not bend to you. But like Cook is just like, he'll remind you of everything all the time, and it's like, and then it'll be like, and then the Lou Saldano, and remember Lou was the guy, and every time he reintroduces it to you, because like there is a woman with short hair for utility purposes living on a golf course that is reading probably about 67 years old, couple wine glasses deep, and is kind of falling asleep a little bit and might miss a few pages. So she needs to be reminded, or else the book didn't hit for her. I that's my grandma. So, but yeah, that's also, exactly how it is. Yeah.
Also, I love, this is basically, not to compare too much to Crichton, but it's Crichton if you had like the sliders and you just turn down the horniness like 3 notches, where it's like, man, those 2 chicks on the, on the compound in Africa, man, it's like, if this was a Crichton book, they'd be getting saucy, dude. Yeah.
No, and there's so for people who don't know, there are what happens throughout the book is that Kevin, the very genius, like kind of like Spurgy, I don't even know what his title job, but but like, he has got one of those like, I am the genetic engineer guy or something. He's got like at Genesis or whatever.
He's like never talked to a woman in his life.
Never done any of that. But then he realizes that through transplanting and like splicing chromosome, the science I still don't even understand, but like it is able to you create a double. So you make a healthy liver for somebody that needs a liver, and they come back good as new. But then like you also put your old liver, I guess, in the monkey or something. You create a double out of that, and they're like kind of a prehistoric kind of, or like a Neanderthal style society. So he realizes he's created that. And that's what he understands when he sees they're playing with fire and there's smoke in there. And I'm like, the one real complaint I have about this book is like, dude, I needed one graphic like monkey killing of like a human, because there was a part where they're like, oh, and one of them killed one of our guys. Crichton would just flash to that scene of the guy getting killed by the monkey, and I like, and we're talking about the GOAT to me, like in terms of writing these thrillers. I think he's one of one, and you'll never, because he also comes into a book with a point he's trying to make. I don't know that Robin Cook was trying to make a point. I think he was just trying to make a thriller, and that's totally fine. He accomplished what he wanted to do.
And you can tell with the way it reads, like for me, like, I rushed through like the first like 150, 200 pages. And then there is a point where it starts to lull when you're like in New York for like 100 pages. And it's just like Jack and Laurie kind of like you already know what they're looking for, but they don't know what they're looking for, so it kind of like is like it starts to like lull, like not be that kind of quick thriller that you like are used to, or like something like like you said Crichton would do. And that's where I was kind of like, what about lulled? Yeah.
But then Warren, the black dude, comes in and really adds a little intense thing, dude. The scene with Warren where he's like, where Jack finally realizes he needs to go to Africa. He's like, after a couple games pickups, like, Warren, do you know anything about this country in Africa? And he's
dude,
like, yeah, dude, I do. Yeah.
He's mad. He's like, yeah, the guy we just played in the orange sneakers, that guy is from there, dude. Did you not know?
Love it, dude. And then all of a sudden, he's getting attacked by the mobsters in the apartment. Warren comes in with like an assault rifle.
Dude.
Yeah.
I picture like Public Enemy playing, dude.
Like sleeveless shirt, flat top, like 80s Ernie Hudson black eye. Like just comes in with a assault rifle, ice and like ready to just take down the mob, dude. I'm just gonna take down the mob, like in like my Spike Lee.
Yo, but I was amped, dude, when I realized they weren't gonna get hurt and they flipped the tables. I was like, oh, let's fucking go, dude. Yeah.
No, I was amped.
These guys are going to jail.
They killed the cat, though, dude. They did kill the cat.
That was fucked up. That was like the most graphic.
There's two jarring moments. There's two jarring moments in the book because they find out somebody else who had a surgery is like this fat rich girl. Kind of like a girl version of a girl version. Yeah, she's a girl version of like Frances from Pee Wee Herman, and Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and she gets like straight up killed. I was like, whoa, I didn't like that. The tone of this book didn't suggest that. I thought she was gonna like be captured and like be hostage for the whole time, but they were like. I guess Cook was like, well, she's not hot, so, you know.
Yeah.
I think we're,
they made her fat. Crazy.
They made her fat and like manic depressive. She like threatens to kill herself all the time or whatever. I was like,
this is you know, it's like the Stephen A. Smith thing for The Dark Knight. And he's like, my one criticism of The Dark Knight is Maggie Gyllenhaal. I'm gonna tear up the whole city to save Maggie Gyllenhaal, you know, like and he's like, I need you gotta put somebody like, you know, Halle Berry. I'm gonna tear up the city for Halle Berry.
Yeah. Jack Stapleton, the man of what he like lives in, like he like chooses to live in like a shitty like part of New York City or whatever, and his like black friend. The part that I put out was like 184, where he talks about how he code switches when he's around Warren, and he starts pulling out the black scent. He says, "Yeah, sure." Jack called back, "You never let nobody win nothing." Jack made it a point to adapt his syntax for the environment. I'm out of here.
I love it.
Yeah, so good. And I noticed the other part too. They are like it was that 90s like PC when who's the guy that works with Lori or the woman, right? And it's like she's like, he was a black dude. Easily one of her favorite coworkers, just a great guy, you know, like where you have to go out your way to be like, this guy's so cool, the black one, you know, that guy, he's so great. I was like, it's such a 90s.
Dude, it's so funny when I was trying to Google if Robin Cook was a hooper. I was trying to like look it up.
Oh shit!
Like if he played, because you know, like doctors always have their one little sport for like pure cardio reasons, like they don't even ball. They don't even ball. No, he's in full cycling gear, like just full cycling gear with the neon helmet, dude, the safety green helmet. And I'm like, that's a doctor, dude. Yeah, it's so funny. But I like that. I love it. I love the Italians, dude. I love the way like old white people think like Italians still like do business and stuff and tear shit up. And I love the not even trying to reveal that like they're like, there's a mole in our society here. The mob's taking we got a mole in the office, and then like as if on the last page I'm supposed to be shocked that it's like Vinny Aldriccio, the guy that works at the funeral home that doesn't seem interested in any of this. I'm like, oh, thanks, Robin. We
the guy that he can't meet anyone's eye since like page 200. You know, it's like
like he's all mad. Mobster, and then like this Italian, the mobster's brother-in-law runs the funeral home that wouldn't let us do the autopsy, and then this weird Italian guy that works with us. After we've already had 3 other medical thrillers go completely wrong before this at the hands of Italians. But you know, dude, like some of the, it's funny. It's just it's total NCIS. Like Russian mobsters are shooting up Chicago Nike stores. You know, like just that's like their thing. It's just really funny. It's so charming. I love I loved getting into like boomer bestseller mode. Like I thought it's not how it's not typically what I read.
It is boomer too. I like even like the picture on the back with like Robin Cook and like his medical like stethoscope and shit, like in a clipboard is like his author photo to like give authority. Be like, I'm a doctor. I know what I'm talking about. Like
the boomers close the book and they go, and you know what? That guy's actually a doctor.
Yeah.
So he knows. And like there's some soft criticism of the medical industry too. Like there's one part that I had highlighted. I don't have my Kindle in front of me, but I know what it said. And there was a part where I believe Jack and Lori, when they finally realize like what's going on, what they're actually looking for, and they're kind of like, yeah, and this island, it was like I just when they let the NIH do stuff, it was so much better, the National Institute of Health. And it's like now this privatized stuff is crazy, and I'm just like. Yeah, no, I mean,
you know who was running the NIH back then too, 1997.
Exactly.
Yo. I wonder if Robin Cook. I wonder if he chopped it up with Fauci at all.
Probably did. Fauci came to a reading in Manhattan. He signed
Italian,
a copy, dude.
Italian.
Yeah,
he's an Italian. Dude. Yeah, he's mobbed up.
It's like the only first book I've ever read that has like a fucking glossary in the back that isn't like I mean I guess that's happened for like some like like James Joyce or whatever. I've seen something like that before. But like this is it's like and it like has like a glossary to help people understand like what a chromosome is and like it's like, oh, this book's called Chromosome 6, but if you don't know, check out this the glossary. Like what they define vaccine. Vaccine in the back.
Yeah. It's like the army, like those guys that write like military books, and they want to make sure they're really mad that if like a military guy reads it and calls out the bullshit, like they don't care if it's a bestseller, but they want to make sure the military guy likes the book. That's kind of how I think Robin Cook is, where he's like, bro, I'm a doctor and I know doctors are going to read my shit. So I have to like make sure that it's very doctor friendly, I'm guessing that's why he did. Cause I thought it was very funny too when I was done. Like, again, I'm on a Kindle, so you don't like get that little thumb full of pages that you have left. So you're just kind of like, okay, what's on the back? You're like, a glossary. I was like, and then it's like, what is a bonobo? I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Pre-Google though. Pre-Google.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is pre-Google.
Pre-Google. So it was so it was. I wanted more bonobos, dude. I kind of thought it was gonna lead to some like real Planet of the Apes shit for a second, and I was like, I'm in if we're going there. We didn't get it. That was my one thing. I thought there was an avenue for the bonobo like revolution, even if it's thwarted.
Dude, right, I've been Siegfried. Like subliminally like messaged into like rewatching all the Planet of the Apes movies recently too. So I was like, I guess because that new one's coming out, so like all of my shit was just like whenever you log into YouTube or something, it's just like, oh, this Planet of the Apes from 1968. Planet of the Apes remake, like. And I'm so, I should watch those. Like, and I ended up watching them, and then I started reading this book. I was like, damn, like, isn't that convenient? Like, reading this fucking book, and it's always like, there is something about monkeys too, like. Monkeys and apes, maybe because they're so much like us. Yeah. Where it's just like kind of like there's a little bit of like fear to it, like just a little bit of like, oh, like even going through like the monkey house at the zoo or something, they just have like such like their facial expressions that like it's like we're used to like animals that have isn't it cute, but then like a monkey or something, and you're like, oh, it looks like a human being, like
it's uncanny, it's a little weird,
and they like respond to you like humans and shit. But I did want to talk about the medical malpractice. Yeah, like Raymond Lyons, we learned right away, lost his license for like Medicare fraud. Like, and then like it's like referenced like every doctor that keeps coming up is like having like money issues or something, and they're like, oh well, I had this money issues, and I just need to keep my lifestyle, having a penthouse in Manhattan and a hot assistant that I bang regularly and make her cry or whatever. Like Raymond. And we had to get right to like the Genesis pharmaceutical company, which is like the company that's like paying for all of this research in the book. I guess fictional, but you know, shit. I mean, you guys talk about this on your podcast all the time with like just the corruption in that, and I want to get to like the ethical implications as well with just like. Because there's a point where like, okay, we need to have some medicines, like we gotta, and then like there's like, okay, you have to like test these too to make sure they don't kill people, but then there's like all this kind of like corruption involved in that too, right? I mean, The Fugitive, right? Like fucking the drug in that is like the main catalyst because they're like trying to switch the liver samples to prove that it like because it was causing terrible liver damage, but they wanted to push it through anyway. They don't really get into the FDA approval because it's supposed to be like secret and all that, but I'm sure Cook has other books where that like matters or whatever. I don't know, but probably. And there's also like lots of shots at like the academia side of it too, where like the doctor, he's like persuading these doctors to like recruit patients and like being like, oh, well, come do research for me and you won't be stifled like you would in academia. How restrictive it is because like you can't like actually be honest or like do like the serious research. You can do some research, but like, you know, you're restricted on funding. You can't actually like even the guy Kevin, like the main character Kevin Marshall in this, who's like the autist like researcher who discovered you could like splice these chromosomes and like create perfect like compatible copies of organs and shit. Like he was talking about how he left academia. He keeps referencing it. I wonder if Cook like left academia at a certain point too, where somebody that's been in it like. I mean, it is pretty restrictive sometimes, man. Like, like, you know, you mentioned even in the beginning of the podcast, like I try to have like writers on this podcast. Like I'll message them, I'll send them an email and like, it just like, they won't come on. Or if they respond, they're just like, kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
They act like that. They act like it's some massive thing. And or what I hate more than anything, dude, what I hate is when you have somebody like that you want to have on and then they're like, what are we going to talk about? And then you tell them what they're going to talk about and they're like, okay. And then they like want every question. I'm like, no, that's not what the show is.
We're not CNN, bro.
I don't have to show your screen, you know, like I don't know what I'm going to ask you yet. And that's the fun part. And we're going to feel it out. So, like, it's tough because if you do want these big name people, they have a bit more of a reputation than the average Twitter anon to come on. And they do have to, they can't I hate having people from the scientific field most of the time because they won't speculate ever. Like they're like, well, I haven't looked into that. Well, I haven't looked into that yet. It's like, neither have I. Like, like Brian's literally just thought of it right now. So and then they always have like a kind of sick answer that they end up saying. And you're like, that's fine, dude. Like, I don't think your medical reputation is on the line because you agreed to come on here. It doesn't matter what you say at that point. Like, you know, you came on the, you know, anti-chemotherapy podcast. Like you that's you already messed up. So stop trying to save face.
Yeah. And it is true. It does stifle, like, because like being there, like when you start to go off the plantation. So, you know, as a metaphor, like when you start to, in these various academic fields, if you start to just, you know, creep a little bit, or you start to come up with a theory that like walks a line, whatever, like there are serious consequences. Like, unless you're somebody that's like super tenured at like MIT or something, but even then, like if you go, like if you're like a Kevin Marshall guy and you're like, well, I have this thing, and you kind of like, I don't know, like people will start laughing at you, or they'll just like dismiss it, or like you'd have serious reputational costs, like you're not getting invited to the conference anymore, or like you're kicked out of the association, which is very damaging to the reputation, you know, like if you're not like a member of whatever guild or something, that's always like, and it's like, I mean, like, and I imagine somebody like Cook probably understood that too, because like, it's like, all right, we're trying to do some fucking science here. Like, we're trying to do some medical research here, and we can't be tiptoeing around this like DEI shit or whatever. Although, you know, you get Warren to come in there and he'll, with some machine guns loaded with fucking Uzis.
I would say, hilarious, man. The Warren thing is the funniest thing in the world, because he's just like, yeah, what's up with you and Natalie? We gotta like kick it sometime. You know what I mean? We gotta go on a double date. And he's like, hey, do you want to go to like Africa with this? He's like, yeah, you know what? You're crazy for a white boy. Dude, I'm down. Like, let's rock. What are we gonna do?
Dude, it's crazy, dude. Like, a lot of black people that they don't want to go to Africa, like, ever.
No,
they're like, fuck that, dude.
Africans don't like black people in America. It's not chill for them. Like, it's completely like you realize, like, when you. Like, dude, I go on Twitter and I follow a lot of like black Twitter, and like there's Haitians on there. They go hard on black people. Like, they're like,
it's crazy.
Like, I was just this big thing about like the Kendrick Lamar and Drake thing. There's like, not to go full tangent, but this does actually apply to
we love tangents on this pod. Yeah,
sure, exactly. So do I. But the person who, there was this girl named like Ruby Rose or something, and then she's like this video vixen chick in like rap or something, and she was like admitting to like probably being like underage, like messing around with like rappers, blah blah blah. 90s, who cares, we wouldn't even care about any of that stuff, but now it's a thing. And somebody was saying, like, there was a Haitian guy that was like, yeah, well, if her name was Ruby Jean Baptiste, this shit wouldn't have happened. Like, it's it's such a funny debate. Like, so it's just funny seeing this like Spike Lee character of a guy like from the 90s, like just going like, I'll come to Africa with you because you know what, bro? Because we play pickup basketball together, and that means more to me than anything. So.
Yeah.
I love it. I love Robin
So
Cook's
good.
idea. I love Robin Cook's idea. Like, yeah, that's gonna slap, dude, when I do
dude,
that.
it's so funny.
I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved that. I was like audibly laughing at that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was all our favorite parts, if I'm clean.
Oh. I was just like magnificent,
Yeah.
dude.
But I would say just the era that this came out in, I just noticed a couple of things where I don't disagree with anything that either you just said in the previous point, but I would say today, arguably, if you go against any of this mainstream biotech privatized thrust in academia, you are the one that actually is outcast. And if you say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing that, you're actually, it's all one thing now completely. And what was happening in the 90s was the Human Genome Project, right? And there was famously the public search for the Human Genome Project, which was spearheaded by Francis Collins, who you may remember for lying about he was like a Fauci guy, basically, like another Fauci guy. So total scumbag, but he did the Human Genome Project. And then there was a privatized version. It was like an arms race with this billionaire Craig Venter, who he's like, fuck it, I'll do my own and we're going to beat them. And I think he did. And he's actually super based and super honest too. And what happened with the Human Genome Project is, and this is all, I think probably came a couple years after this book was published. So this is just the zeitgeist of the time of when this book was written. But what happened is nothing has been more oversold than genetics in human health, like at all, basically. You know, it's like, sure, there's been progress and medicines have come or whatever, but they were promised like trillions of dollars of return on their investment and basically got no percentage of that. And Craig Venter, who put up tons of money for this, like almost went from billionaire to millionaire status to do all this, you know, like still obviously super rich or whatever. Right. He's like, he has this famous quote where he's like, you know, I became a millionaire the hard way by working backwards from a billion, that whole thing, right? It comes from him. But we learned that we have like less genes than a starfish, that our understanding of genetics and how it maps onto actual traits is like so limited and still is today. And so we just had this idea that we were going to solve every disease, you know, within a decade. And that just never panned out. And ironically, it was the privatized guy that was kind of like, yeah, it's not going to happen, guys. Sorry. And then the public version of that was kind of like super optimistic still, because they all wanted funding money and they all wanted to keep their careers going, like string theory, you know, or something in physics where you just keep asking for money and stuff. So I thought that was interesting, like mixed up in all this, where like maybe Robin Cook's a little optimistic, but who wasn't back then, kind of a thing. Yeah.
No, they're total I mean, you're talking about, you know, the beginning of the tech boom, right? I mean, not the beginning, but like the true explosion of the tech boom, because that goes hand in hand with the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah. And then you have, you know, I toggle back and forth whether I get mad at doctors or scientists. I do get mad at scientists. I end up landing on like, I'm still mad at you guys because I just like, you have free will. Like you need to realize sooner in life that what you're doing is, you're never going to have, there's like three things you're not going to have. You're not going to have the freedom, right? Because you always are going to be working for somebody. There are no like freelance medical people that like, I mean, there are, but they get their laboratories destroyed and stuff and all that. You're not going to have the freedom to research what you want to research. And even if you do find something that's like, wow, this is what I've always dreamed of, you're still going to have a Siegfried in the book. You're going to have like the scarred, like elephant ivory tusk, like hunter of a guy. Like you still have that, you know, spiritually that person in your lab and everything that says like, hey bro, like there's a conclusion you cannot come to because the funding does not come in for that. And you know, there are people that say, well, if we had state run this, state run that, like there's a lot of research that gets buried when the state's in charge too. So there's always interest, and I'm kind of leery on that moment too. But then you're never going to have but then you're also, in my opinion, what I get mad is when people realize they don't have those two things, they then rage out about that privately, but then still operate within that system. And it's like, well, if you know something's unethical, the number one thing is there's supposed to be a code of ethics in doctors. And like, you're supposed to realize like, okay, maybe if I'm putting monkey parts in humans, like maybe there's a little bit of a downside. And these guys just have their head down working and working and working and working. And there is like such a small area of focus to where like perhaps you don't understand that. But I'm always just like, okay. But then when people do warn you about that kind of stuff, when that stuff happens, they get labeled a crank. And then nowadays it's straight up censored on the internet.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it gets really mad when, okay, yeah, maybe I might be wrong about a few things. Maybe I overreact to a few things, but it's like, couldn't mine just be a factor in research, my take on it? Like just be a little bit of a factor or one range of outcome that could be thrown into your experiment rather than just completely disregarded. So I just hate when they try to check all three of those boxes because I don't think that exists when you're actually operating, whether it's private or state run.
Yeah. And I think Cook does a good job of kind of like, especially the Kevin Marshall character, like kind of showing that like, kind of clueless autists, that are kind of like they're so preoccupied with like, and Crichton captures this a lot too, and obviously the most famous Jurassic Park kind of like, that you were so preoccupied with whether or not you didn't stop to think of whether or not you should, right? Like kind of the power balance, and like Psi was saying, like things like CRISPR. I mean, they've been talking about that for like 30 years, and like it's just starting to like be able to like isolate out like a few chronic illnesses that they've traced back to. Because the thing is, because so many illnesses aren't genetic, so many of them, a lot of them are, I guess, but then like so many, you can't control for all that. And this is a good place to move into like the kind of, it's funny too, because we were talking about scheduling this for a couple months, and everybody's got shit going on, but then I saw this article come across Twitter, and I immediately messaged Glenn. It was about like pig organs being used in transplant, because like they've been trying to do this, especially in like pigs and stuff, and like apes, things that are close to us, like for decades at this point. Because one, I guess it would be lucrative, it would be like a business where like you could. And I guess the big problem with organ transplants that they talk about in the book is the rejection of the organ. Like even if it's like compatible, especially if it's a different fucking species organ, like of course the body's going to reject that. Like, so they've been trying to do that for decades. But when they talk about kind of the ethics of it, on like where Kevin talks to those girl bosses for the first time at like the commissary at this like compound in Africa. Where it's a little bit long, but just like it's mostly speech. So he's like, well, how did this case make you feel? Candace asked. Most of us on the surgical team were more upset this time, even though we thought we were prepared, especially since it was the second sacrifice. Kevin looked at Melanie. His mouth had gone dry. Candace was forcing him to face an issue he'd struggled to avoid. It was part of the reason the smoke coming from Isla Francesca upset him so much. Yeah, it bothers me, Melanie said, but I guess I'm so thrilled with the involved science and what it can do for a patient that I try not to think about it. Besides, we never expect to have to use many of them. They are more like insurance in case the clients might need them. We don't accept people who already need transplant organs unless they can wait 3+ years it takes for the double to come of age. And we don't have to interact with these creatures. They live off the island by themselves. And that's right before she was talking about like the liver transplant with like one of the patients that like pays for this, because this is for like rich people only, like an exclusive club. And she was talking about, oh, well, they did this in pigs. Maybe we should do it with pigs and not monkeys, and then it would be okay, kind of thing. And since we have the resident vegan here, animal rights activist, I just like like the ethical, and like the ethical implications of kind of the moral frameworks around this. She's like, oh, well, I don't know if it's apes, but maybe pigs, or oh, I don't know. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe humans. I mean, I don't know. Like what is the kind of your guys' thoughts on it? Yeah, especially you, Psi.
Yeah, I think that the heart of this question is always, especially when it comes to what you eat or any of that stuff, is do we have a shared moral thing between us, or do we all come to that individually, right? And I would say like the hardcore vegan activists are, they're really adamant that this thing is absolutely wrong, and factory farming or whatever, and that you're wrong if you participate in it, even if you're ignorant to it, even if you just go through it unwittingly. Actually, the next Bob's Red Pill is going to be on this kind of topic, all this different stuff. But I don't know, like I've never felt comfortable with that. I do think at some level, we do come to our own conclusions with all this, and we all have to factor that in. Obviously, that doesn't help much when you're running like a biotech business or anything like that. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think it taps into the question of consciousness, or more importantly, sentience. Whether if you're a sentient being who can experience things, because like an octopus is like probably sentient, right? And but they only live a year. There's all these different factors. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling about this, but I do like the funniest part is his Asperger's freak out during this scene when he's never, like you said, he's just has his head down the whole time. He's the kind of guy that work 5 years straight in the jungle and then be like, huh, and then notices this fire going on
God,
and be like,
dude,
there's something going on here, and then it just all comes to a head where he processes all. Honestly, and like, it's like in front of these two hot chicks, you got to keep your cool a little bit, bro. Just save it, just go to the bathroom or something. But I don't know. It's clearly that whatever drive there is to monetize this stuff, it clearly doesn't have the ethical considerations in mind, and that's very common, I guess, in these types of industries. What do you think?
Oh, to me, man, it's first off with the one of my favorite scenes was when they first decide, Kevin and Melanie and Candace decide they're gonna go to the island and want to go Isla Francesca and just see what's going on, because they just got to know for their own good what happens. And then it doesn't go so well, but then the girls decide they need to go back when they're all drunk, and then but then like also the guy needs to be in charge of all of it, even though it was their idea, which I thought was very funny. Like, it's like, oh, would you? Yeah, I mean, you could still help and stuff. He's like, no, this was literally your idea, like, to do this again, which is just that part is great. That's very Crichton. That's extremely Crichton. And then the also, I think it's interesting because the fear of death. I mean, you see it now with like the transhumanists, like Brian Johnson types. Now this is just this absolute like, I don't think we grow at all until we start understanding death a little more. Like, there's conscious, there's sentience, and then just understanding like the end of life. And look, wherever anybody is at spiritually and stuff, it's very strange that just people just can't die, and I'm not, it's not, look, okay.
Brian Johnson's whole thing is don't die. Like,
don't die.
He's the motto.
Him on Red Scare. Him on Red Scare was like insane. I listened to it. I was just like, dude, are you that scared of dying? Like, and I am. I'm not saying I'm like ready to die. But I know that's a flaw in me. It's not. I don't view that as like, no, this is amazing and I'm gonna save everyone's life. It's like, no, I need to be more comfortable with that. I need to be more comfortable with losing things and going into another realm.
Think about that dude. That dude left the Mormon Church to do this. That's his whole thing, dude. Yeah. He sold Venmo for $800 million and does.
Dude, you could have had a planet, bro.
I know, dude.
You could have been on a planet vibing with your family, dude. Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, I share blood with my son. It's like, bro, you could have shared a planet with your son.
Yeah.
Like, think about that, dude. And then, but then, like, there's people need to be more comfortable with that, because take that Carlo Franconi, is that the guy's name, the mobster that's the dead mobster that they're all going around. He has like a rotten liver because he lived a horrible life, right? Now he had like cirrhosis, like all this horrible thing. He has his like fake Dr. Levitt's doctor, like this like fake like mob front of a doctor, and that dude kind of just like was just getting greased up mob money, didn't particularly care about these guys' health and well-being. But we're at a point where it's like, why can't that guy die? Right? He had many opportunities to turn his life around. And why do we have to just carve open pigs and monkeys? Like, it's this over. I believe that humans do have a special importance on the earth. I believe, I'm a believer in God. I believe God created humans for a specific reason, for a lot of reasons and stuff. I don't believe that we are. I do believe we are above animals. Like, I do. I just that's me personally. I'm not married to the idea, but I do believe that's that. But I don't believe that we need to, like, in our own fear of mortality, we need to just be carving things out of pigs or monkeys and stuff to be replacing them with. Also, do you guys think we actually have this right now? Because there's like all these theories about adrenochrome, all these things like that. It is a very adrenochromal novel. Do you think, because like our president literally could be a C6 guy, dude? Like Joe Biden could literally be a chromosome 6 guy. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, from what I know about it, we're not quite there. We are close, I think, to some of these like pig organs, I guess, is the one they're really going for right now. Like that article that I shared with Glenn when we were like, oh, we have to do this before it becomes real life. Like, so we're like, we have to cover this before it becomes like a next big thing. Because I know like they do transplants, but usually the only successful transplants are from other humans. Because again, when you're going interspecies organs, like, yeah, they're similar, but they're not quite there yet. And it is kind of like, but then you think, I think with like, yeah, we're chopping these animals most of the time, especially if you're taking something from a liver, you know, it's not like a kidney where you can only live with one or something. Like they talk about that in the book, where, oh, we're just taking a kidney or we're just taking like one lung or something. And okay, yeah, you could still live with that. I mean, people donate that now, right? Like humans or whatever, if they're compatible, like a twin brother or something that have the same like blood type, they're like, oh, I'll donate a kidney to save your life kind of thing because I only need one. But then, like, I think this is why we tend to romanticize, you know, I mean, not everybody does, I guess, but, like, you know, kind of the Native American cultures where, like, they knew that they had to, like, kill things to survive, but they were, like, very adamant about, like, not wasting, you know, and kind of, like, being, like, prayers over it and kind of, like, thanking the animal as it's, like, dying, like, kind of. And I guess even, you know, as horrific as a lot of the slaughterhouse stuff is, too, I guess there is, like, an emphasis on, like, do it quick, don't let these things suffer, like I mean, you know, that doesn't always work, but like it's like there is just like an inherent kind of, we feel that, you know, like yeah, and you always see like those viral posts or something, like videos of like audio of like the slaughterhouse, like these animals like screaming because they have the same instinct as we do to not die, right? Like survival instinct. And it is kind of like, I mean it's a hard question. I'm not saying we're getting answers, but yeah, it is kind of like, because then I think too, like animal testing, right? Like you see, oh, this is kind of like the lib thing or whatever, where they're like, oh, don't test on animals. But then it's like also like, I don't know, is it more ethical to test on like homeless people on the street or something? You know? Like,
there's two big, the whole thing, like there's two ends of that spectrum of, I do agree with Glenn. I do think there is some sort of contract of animals, like this is from a spiritual level, which again, people are going to say we're insane for even considering this type of stuff. Materialists will be like, you guys are fucking retards. But the whole thing, I do think there is some kind of contract where animals come down to serve humans in a sense. That is their kind of
part of a sort of like
part of a bigger thing. Yeah,
and they might have I will say, I don't want you to finish, but we might have. And I do think, even though, yes, they do react to pain in ways that we react to pain and stuff, which suggests that maybe they're not ready to die. We don't know that. And I do believe pretty much all living life is sentient to a degree. And maybe they already have like an idea more than we do about transitioning into another life. You know, like maybe they do just because their death happens so suddenly. Animal death is like extremely sudden, right? Most of the time. And now, you know, you have like sick dogs and things for domesticated animals, but for a lot of animals, it happens very quick and swiftly. They might have another idea of how the afterlife or whatever else, reincarnation for animals, they might have something that we can't quantify and never really need to quantify, you know, in that. But I want to, Psi, go on. I want to hear that. I just mean they might actually understand death more than we do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting. I think a lot of these questions the way we pose the question kind of hides the answer a little bit, where, you know, there are extreme vegan. This is why I don't really vibe with that scene. And obviously there's the political aspect where they think I'm the enemy because they don't have booster. Like vegans are into boosters now. And just as an example, that's one of many things. Or you have to be a leftist or whatever to be. And it's really interesting. Yeah, because like people like on that end of the spectrum will say I'm unethical for having cats or pets, right? Some people are that extreme. And then on the other end of the extreme, you kind of do have, I think it is kind of lazy where we're like, yeah, circle of life, bro, whatever, but it's just horrific conditions for this kind of shit. And we know it's wrong. And what inspired me to write this thing I'm writing now is that I'm seeing a lot of the more based Twitter nutrition types kind of calling to the factory farm thing being bad. And I just think it's interesting how with the animal testing thing is funny too, because a lot of that data we receive and results we receive from that field are just really not horrible and not applicable to human health. So a lot of it's just they died for nothing, which is kind of fucked up too. And so I think there is this middle thing where I do think we are moving away from it. I don't think everyone needs to go vegan or anything, but I do think we will push for just more of a, and to Glenn's point, to having, you know, if you're gonna do this thing, keep the living conditions good and the death extremely quick and painless, which actually doesn't happen. There are some fucked up things of like a cow escaping and then just like bleeding out for half an hour and stuff. It's pretty gnarly. the people that work in those, there's always like leaving and having this crazy turnover in those fields because it's just so insane. It's just like a weird place to work and stuff.
Yeah,
but,
nobody wants to see that shit.
Yeah,
veal too. Like no way we
all
eat
the
like
immigrants
veal.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, how could you ethically make veal?
Yeah.
How could you ethically make veal, right? Like truly, ethically. Like if you watch the process of like veal, which like literally the most ardent meat eater like is gonna cringe if they had to watch it. You know, like that's it's something to say. Like I agree with Psi. It like doesn't happen as often as people think. I don't really I still haven't heard an answer of how everyone eats grass-fed based like trad life beef like for like on a large scale.
Right.
Like with the spacing of the grazing and all that stuff, like how does that happen?
And the thing is the whole idea of if you have a materialist worldview, which our science is materialist, and then you also have this just constant factory farming scene going on, which is the baseline reality. You're going to pose these questions of ethics over animal research, but it's kind of just that. It's just a question, right? Whereas if factory farming wasn't really a thing, if we decided not to do that, it would throw a wrench. It would cause us to ask all these other questions and live all in a whole different other way. And I do think it's coming, not in some like I want it to happen or this is like my ideology or something. I just see it trending that way, you know, and I do think it's going to be interesting. And this again, it's kind of like how remember Karen Laurie on our podcast, how she she's grass-fed beef, she's an awesome woman, is just like hyper positive about everything. I do think it's going to be a thing where the more we realize that we live after death, the more we're going to honor life, right? And that's kind of a thing where it's going to be, we're going to be very careful and not necessarily like the Native American way, kind of like where we're just going to copy that, but just we're not going to be as scared of death, but we're also going to create a culture of life, and because there's just a lot of death, right? Just a little weird psychic vibes, I feel. And I think there's a lot of layers to this stuff that, again, if you're only on the materialist plane, you're not going to catch any of that. And you're probably going to be left confused with a lot of that, the medical thing. Yeah.
Like making like the materialist argument, like for, I guess, reform or whatever, reform of like factory farm, whatever, you would think like, like most of the outbreaks that we have, like E. coli outbreaks or whatever in like the meat packing industry, it's because of these conditions too. And it's like, that could be a very easy fix. And I know, government regulation or whatever, but like if you're like, oh, okay, well, if we want to help people or make them not get sick and not get the animals sick, it's like, okay, well, the reason they're getting sick is because they're so fucking packed in there that when they shit, it just goes on the other fucking animal. They're just like shitting on each other, like. There. And
it's
like,
dissolving illusions.
The
factory farm conditions now are like what London and New York City was in 1850 for humans,
Right.
So we do need like a dissolving illusions revolution for the animals, even if we continue to eat them, even if we continue to cram them into little cages or whatever, we could still. That's my whole thing with people that like wantonly just consume this. I'm like, you should want good vibe stuff for your own health, even if you don't care about anything else, right? You just be, you should have better standards for yourself, and not like not judgmental. Obviously, like a single mom feeding her kids McDonald's is like, you should, it's not like that or anything, right? Where it's just like, as a society, I think we should evolve past whatever we got going on now, whatever this is. Yeah, but the monkey thing's interesting. I mean, I love, if you could show if you could have an animal react to a magic trick. There's something going, it's like, you ever see those like cards, you should do like a card trick for like a bonobo and they're just like, what the fuck? They're just like freaking out and shit. There's something going on there, where maybe they make the best livers, too, because they can react to the magic trick. I don't know, It's interesting. The pig's not reacting to the magic. They're like, I don't give a fuck, dude.
Yeah, exactly. It's no, I truly don't have the answer. It is interesting to speculate on. I think, like I said, there's a spiritual thing because I said we're in the combination now of super materialist scientists where everyone fears death but doesn't believe in an afterlife. That's really that's a terrible place to be as a society right now, where it's like, I am given this amount of years on Earth, therefore Earth needs to be this hyper technocratic utopia, and by age 60 I need to constantly be checking to make sure my penis works, like with an app, or else a society, the West has fallen, you know.
And I guess it does become that in the story too. Eventually, I guess where like towards the end, where they're. It's almost like, I guess really it's Kevin and then like the girl bosses that have the kind of like, oh, we need to free the monkeys, we need to free the bonobos or something, we need to. I don't really get like super hardcore and like, oh, we need to expose it or something, and like send in stuff to the New York Times or whatever. But like it is kind of, it's like that's the natural conclusion, right? When there is something within us, like Glenn was saying about like being stewards, because we're the most intelligent creature on the planet, that, you know, it's like us and like, you know, dolphins and orca whales or whatever that are like literally like the smartest creatures. I guess we're technically smarter than them, but it's still like.
And those guys rape and murder too. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
they're fucking orcas, dude. They're assholes.
Orcas go crazy. Yeah.
They're like the no predators. Yeah, they're like
they're literally orcs. Orcs, like Lord of the Rings.
It's crazy. Yeah. And they like kill whatever. Yeah, and like hunt in that same way. But yeah, it just. There is like this kind of natural arc that like as stewards, I think we like, it's almost like inherent in us too to like think of it that way, because like once Kevin and all of them are confronted with what's happening, like they're like uneasy with it, but then it is kind of like, oh well, then we need to be better stewards, like we've, I guess maybe it's something dumb like taking responsibility or whatever for like the creations. And that's it. I'm going to get to like the Frankenstein angle too, like the kind of your creation, you know, like you love your creation to some extent, but
Yeah. And I think by the way, I have to point out that how funny was it that like everyone just assumed Kevin was like not interested in finding the truth because he was getting pussy from like girls. Everyone's just like, oh, he's just with those two girls, man. Bro, he's distracted. They're going off on little vacations to go fuck. You know, he's like, so we don't got to worry about Kevin. Kevin's like, no, I'm fucking on Spurg. Like, he's literally like, Kevin is literally like the guy that in that meme where the guy's like neck vein is popping out in like the chair, you know, like the student. It's exactly like what he is. But I think it's I think that part made me laugh too, where everyone's like, nah, dude, Kevin, bro, shout out Kevin. Like that's what everyone's like, dude.
They're like, Kevin? That dude? Yeah. Really?
They're
damn.
Like,
all right.
They're like, damn, bro. Like, I gotta get like Kevin. Apparently, like, I'm hating on it, but I'm here with my face scar from like a bad elephant tour ride and stuff. Like, I gotta be like Kevin.
I love how he didn't talk to anybody on the compound for like 6 years, and then he's just like best friends with these girls after like one lunch date, like with hamburgers in the commissary.
I know.
He's got the wine collection. He's been just hoarding wine for.
Dude, it's so lame. Because you know, dude, switch Jack Stapleton with him. Jack Stapleton's hitting the gym every day, getting jacked. Like, and hitting all the movies, dude. They're getting like double features of like current movies and stuff, and eating the burgers. First off, are they burger? I think you might get some bonobo burgers after a while, dude. When that experiment goes wrong, I bet you they did the little bonobo, little
beyond bonobo, dude. They got the
beyond bonobo burger. Just like little potato on a potato bun, you know, like and
some brioche.
Or like the mix, you know, like sometimes you get those like half bison, half like. Aspect, like just mixing a little bonobo in there. But I just think like Jack Stapleton would have like thrived on the island. I don't even think he would have cared about what he was doing on there. I don't even be like, oh, there's smoke. That's cool. I created a sick ass monkey, I guess. Cool. It's like maybe they can hoop. Can they hoop? Because
Guys, I hate to do it. I think I might have to run. Prematurely. So sorry.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll stay with you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this has been a blast. So thank you guys.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, totally. Can't wait to have you on again.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
Right on. Yeah. All right, take it easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Peace, dude. Yeah, no, it's funny. That's exactly like what I was thinking. Is like, man, can they hoop? Can they ball out? Like Jack would just be trying to like create a community out of all that stuff, and then you have like the Kevin guy who's he's just trapped by modernity and like science, and like, you know, it requires that position. I believe it's weird. It requires a Kevin type, like put your head down and work guy, but also for us, we want like our guy who actually like kind of breaks the mold a little bit and kind of, you know, or like tries to at least through a positive attitude create something kind of cool, you know. like Steve, I'm not a technocrat, but I like Steve Jobs because I just liked his mentality. I like the way, you know, I like the way that, you know, I don't know that the smartphone was the best invention, but I think his ideas were cool, you know, and then once like Tim Cook takes over, I'm like, none of this makes sense.
Everything I learn about Jobs is just like this guy was a fucking boss, dude. Like, this guy, like,
so much.
Did you ever watch that Aaron Sorkin movie with him?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah. When they're just like, what do you do at this company?
The Michael Fassbender. You're talking about where Michael. I love that movie, dude. Yeah.
And he's just like, you know what? He's like, what do you do at this company? He's like, what does a conductor do to an orchestra? He's like, I play the orchestra. That's what I do. And I'm just like, oh, what a fucking boss, dude.
I'm him, the movie, basically. That's what that movie. Yeah, and he just. I love that he's just so cool, and it's like the whole idea is like, and then you like, you know, you're supposed to. I love that Sorkin. They were like, yeah, like you kind of want to feel bad about like the situation with his like wife and like his daughter, but then you realize his wife was just like selling like art antiques for like way under value, and he's like, I gave you a bunch of money. Why can you not make that work? Like I gave you everything. Like why do you keep coming back to me? Like you should be a savage like me. Like why did I breed with you? You freak, you know, like, and like you kind of get it. You're just like, dude, he gave you a bunch of money. Like, why did you buy a bunch of stupid shit with it, and like, and then take a bath on every sale? You know, it's just I liked how I ended up loving him in the movie.
Yeah,
like, am I supposed to? I don't know, but I was like, I'm Team Jobs
for sure. And it's like, for that especially, like I remember like the actual story of that. I guess he was just kind of like, you know, he was notoriously kind of an asshole, but like, okay, so he was an asshole to this woman or whatever, but like, he gave her like money every month. Like he like literally like paid for all this shit all the time. Like he still did what he was supposed to fucking do, you know, like all that kind of shit. But yeah, speaking of girl bosses, Candace and Melanie, what do we think?
Oh, dude, I'm like, Kevin, you were blowing a prime opportunity that does not thwart anything that you're doing, by the way. Like if it actually culminated into what we all wanted it to, like, bro, like, come on, like 3 bottles of wine and these 2 girls are dying to hang out with you and like nothing happened.
In their separate guest rooms, just they're showering just in the separate guest rooms.
Yeah, it's brutal. That part is right, but maybe it's on brand. Maybe it's on brand. Maybe it is on brand. And I was just like, it's like, dude, you still can go hit Isla Francesco tomorrow. Like nothing's gonna change. Like in fact, like it might, you know. There might be more positive energy, but I liked them. I was waiting for the longest time. I thought one of them was going to be like an agent, you know, kind of like meant to throw Kevin off a little bit. I thought one of them was going to be a little femme fatale, but it turned out they were both just like kind of. I mean, he does that job doesn't get done because Kevin would just sulk the whole time. He could smoke, and then he would just sulk if it wasn't for them.
Like you said, like not a lot of like danger or anything. Like even if like all the scenes where they were getting shot at, like I feel like Candace could have got taken a bullet or something. You know, you didn't even have to kill her.
That's my thing. I think Cook had. I felt that the one criticism, or not one, but it's a criticism I have of the thing is I felt like there was a threshold. I could see the threshold. Like I'm like, no, you know, there's got to be like a little bit more personal drama between the people where. One of them should have taken a bullet, or one of them should have been a little snake, little slimy little snake that reports everything to Siegfried. You know, one of them should be a double agent or something like that. And I kind of was just like, damn, like when the book ended, I'm like, damn, she really just held it solid for him the whole time, which in real life would be great. I wonder for the sake of drama, I thought that was kind of interesting. You know, or like Lou Saldano, maybe Lou Saldano's like that last name, perhaps. Mafia a little bit, you know, like I was thinking like I was waiting for a little bit more of a drama, but it is just a very straightforward medical ethical thriller. It is just that. It does succeed.
And it feels like Candace was like expendable too, because like she was like just like a fucking, you know, ICU.
She was
nurse.
agreeable.
Yeah.
And also 2 women that constantly agree with each other all the time on an island. Like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Remember, they're like, you're only saying that because she said that. It's like, dude, no, like that is the complete opposite. It would be Kevin would have to be a mediator between them. Like, hey, lady, relax, you know, like just or like being the guy like. Can I talk to you alone, Kevin? Candace said this shit. Like I was kind of waiting for some of that, and it's weird. The women had some solidarity. Maybe that speaks to what like Robin Cook went through in the medical field, perhaps. I don't know. Like I'd like to know a little bit about that.
Kevin saving the day in his Toyota Highlander or whatever. Like...
Yeah, oh yeah, dude. Yeah. It was I did like the old Western style breakout thing that they did. Tying the stucco bar, like the stucco that place with the bars, like the Looney Tune style, like breakout at prison thing. I thought that was really cool. That part's really fun. But yeah, I think it was. I was always waiting for like one person to flip. You know, like just one person to flip and be team Genesis, or start out as good and then be bought out by Gen, because there's so much money being made.
Right. Yeah.
And you think like all you'd have to do is, if you're Siegfried or even Taylor Cabo or whatever his name is, or Raymond Lyons, is just kind of go to one of those girls and it's like, lady, do you want to be like on the cover of Time magazine? Like, we'll take out Kevin and we'll say you did it. You know, I was thinking, or you designed this whole thing, you know, once we go public and publish and stuff. And I was thinking that there was going to be an arc of that happening.
Well, like you were saying, like you pointed to this quote already, like about the NIH stuff, where he said it's bizarre, but it's also intriguing. Jack said, especially this association with a biotech giant like Genesis. The scary part about these corporations is that their research is all behind closed doors. Cold War style secrecy is their modus operandi. No one knows what they are doing in their quest for return on investment. It's a big difference from the 10 or 20 years ago when the NIH funded most biomedical research in a kind of open forum. In those days, there was oversight in the form of peer review, but not today.
Not today.
Dude,
it's charming.
Reading this post-COVID too, like reading this post-COVID is just like I mean, you guys talk about this all the time on your pod and stuff. It's just like, it was such a moment for holy shit, like kind of thing, like what is happening, you know? Even like something like, like these fucking masks, dude. I mean, that was the thing that really set me fucking off with this, whatever, when all of a sudden all the research we have on this is all open, it's all out there. But then all of a sudden everybody starts saying that like, oh, okay, like, well, you have to do this. Fauci's testifying under oath that not one but two masks are our best weapon to fight this virus and shit like that. Like,
yeah, it became etiquette rather than doing the right thing. It became an etiquette. It became a sign of solidarity, the worst kind, the most like benevolent behavior by human beings. But then like, it was benevolent in terms of like, okay, the state is doing unprecedented stuff to you. The state and private companies are doing just basically doing mass, you know, psychological and medicinal warfare on the public. And you're scared to ruffle feathers. That's my problem with a lot of boomers. And I guess sometimes like we'll find out like a random boomer fan. It's like, hey, you guys go hard on the boomers. I'm like, yeah, but they care about ethics, or they care about etiquette to a fault. Like, because, you know, it's, to be fair, like they played by the rules for a lot of their life, and they were rewarded more ways than we were, you know? And so I get that, but it is a completely different time now. And it's just there was no reward for our generation to go for that. And that was why when I saw people my age like going for that, I was like, what do you expect to get out of this? You get a home job? Yeah, I understand why that's cool, but it's like you also might get laid off eventually. Like I've talked to a lot of people that have been working from home, and like their company's downsizing right now.
Oh yeah.
Because they realize, look, like anytime you work from home, they'll track like what you're actually doing. And
sure.
Maybe it's cool for a while, but then when like the quarterly numbers don't look the way they should, they know where the fat is to trim. And it's just, for me, it's like, what are you getting out of this? Like and for the people that were actually scared and thought that this stuff worked, that's fine. But there were many people who actually looked at data, looked at numbers. I'm not even saying that even if I think that COVID was worth the panic, I still don't believe that we had the right to infringe, basically throw the Constitution in the trash over it. I think you still need to let people be killed by their freedoms. I do actually think that if that was the case, but let's just say that that's not it. If you looked at the data and you saw all these things, none of it was there to suggest we needed to shut down society. None of it was there. The fact that it happened in an election year, the fact that it happened only when we had Zoom technology, you couldn't have done it in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
Like you literally could not have done COVID in the 90s, yet that pandemic, which yes, it came from a lab. Sorry, like it did come from a lab. That is just, you cannot defend that anymore. You cannot defend the wet market. Like you just can't. There's just no basis for that to be the case. For that to happen, there's just too many things lined up. You don't have to be like full on tinfoil hat. It's just straight up like looking at a few things of evidence and just going like, I think I'm being fucked with here.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, peer review is going to save us. And I was like, motherfucker, did you see the peer review on masking? We have a lot of it.
Look at my peers, dog.
Didn't fucking save us.
Dog. Yeah. Look at my peers, dog. We're going to hell. Like, this is terrible. Yeah. Like,
didn't save us at all.
My problem with, it speaks to, like, I know people are sick and tired of, like, AI discussions and things like that, but I just hate, even if these things are not really that great and the maximalists are wrong about what they see for the future of AI, a lot of automation and anything, I just hate the fact that I think people are willing to throw away sentience for comfort. And that kind of just bothers me, because people say, like, oh, well, they can't do COVID again. I'm like, I got to see them try it first and see us actually succeed. Because when people say COVID didn't actually work, I mean, it kind of did. The wealth got transferred upward. Many things happened. I believe the election went the way it was supposed to for those people, for the people that were orchestrating this terror. It went their way. There were a lot of things that happened. The right guys got installed in the right places. And then Pfizer made a fuck ton of money. And just the fact, like, for me, people just were willing to throw away their sentience for comfort. And that was the thing I learned about people, that I was kind of like, damn, you don't want to even just push back a little bit, in real time, and, like, maybe make your company make a hard decision. Like, there were a lot of people who went out and got experimental treatment just because their company sent out a quick memo.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you didn't just take it and go like, hey, I don't really want to do this. Like, I know a lot of people didn't even get to that stage. They just went, well, I got to go do it. And then they're wondering why, certain things, they might have some certain issues right now, or feel like they just got straight up duped because they saw that didn't do anything, or they weren't granted the things that they wanted. They still had to wear a mask a couple weeks later and things like that. I'm like, you didn't just go to your employer and just say, like, hey, I don't feel like doing this. Because I did. I went to my employer. They didn't mandate it at my job, but they were talking about it. And I just went like, hey, I'm not going to do this. So if you feel comfortable letting me go, I was like, just do it now. And they were like, no, let's talk. They did that. And I don't know. I just feel like in past generations, there would have just been, people weren't as comfortable, I feel like, and they were more willing to push back.
Peer review will save us, dude. No, yeah, that's what always pissed me off about it too, is I was just like, they were listening to journalists. Like, they'd be like, oh, the people listening now, they'd be like, oh, well, you're not an expert. Like, who the fuck are you guys? And I'm like, all right, well, like, you were listening to people that have the same fucking degrees as me, writing about these peer review things, and not even that. Like, dude. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, And then, like, you had the line, I think the winner of the whole thing, Glenn, where you said it on Rare Candy years ago, where they were like that New Yorker cartoon, right? Like, honey, come quick. I found something that all the top doctors and scientists miss. And then you were just like, they didn't miss it. It's in their journals. It's right here. Yeah. It's right here. You're just not going to get reported by these people with the same degrees as me, writing about
and Michael Crichton in State of Fear, which I think everybody should read. It's a wonderful book. But in that book, it's about climate change. It is almost the exact. You could just substitute the entire thing for COVID, and it would be still the same novel, really. And he just said that he was like, look, I heard that we were putting too much emissions into the atmosphere. He's like, I still believe that way. He goes, however, the laws got passed because of fake science. Like, the actual fear model is what got everybody to actually want that stuff. He goes, that is bad process. Like, he's like, oh, look, I want people to be healthier. I want people to not die of infectious diseases. Hell, I do too. That's why on Rare Candy, we talk about all the ways you can make yourself healthier and combat these kind of things. But he's like, that's not what was happening. What was happening was you were sold a fear model and not competence from your elected officials. You were just sold fear, and that you were told that the entire Pacific Ocean, all properties on the Pacific Ocean were just going to fall into the ocean because of your neighbor's truck or something, like your Bush voting neighbor's truck. That was what you were told. If you were alive during that time, that's people actually thought that was real, and there was no evidence to suggest that was the case. But people just go like, well, I don't want to go against that, because then that makes you think that, like, we could just dump sludge into, like, the town water supply. It's like, no, that's not what we're saying. It's just that you lose. Yeah. It becomes this binary, like, 0-1 thing, where it's like, these are completely deeply nuanced things. We're talking about infectious diseases. We're talking about humans who are nuanced by nature. I mean, I don't know.
Speaking of speaking of these shots and all that, the kind of the biohacking, I think that's a big part of this book, with the kind of I wanted to ask you guys, like, what is it about this kind of biohacking, bioengineering that kind of fascinates us? And like, we're very fascinated by this. And it is kind of like monster movie, like, you know, Frankenstein, like this kind of like creating this kind of hacking our own DNA, hacking a monkey's DNA, like to improve our lives, or I guess, you know, the justification in the book, and I think the justification for a lot of it is, oh, we're trying to save lives, right? Just with like the COVID stuff. Like, oh, we're just trying to save lives, like, but it's like, all right, but like we're like hacking, you know, RNA, like we're trying to hack these monkey livers to make them more compatible and shit. I don't know. I just like, what is that? What is? I mean, it's almost like a monster movie, like horror movie premise, you know, like.
Yeah, it's like a monster movie, and then like Prometheus, you know, and I mean the myth Prometheus, like just the idea that, look, I do believe there are ways, and this gets a little out there and stuff, but like I am kind of like Graham Hancock pilled, where I do think we have way too many holes in the way we look at the evolution of humanity. I do believe there were like past civilizations and stuff, and also I'm a firm believer in extraterrestrials, and I do believe there are, like, I believe like Bluetooth technology exists, but in a way that doesn't fry out your brain. You know what I mean? Like, and because we bypass too many things to streamline it to the market, which is what I think ultimately hurts a lot of people. And like, let's just say we do have those things, but like Prometheus, right, took fire from the gods, and
direct reference in the book too.
Yeah, exactly. Prometheus, that's right, it does. Prometheus took fire from the gods, and he didn't know what to do with it. So it was like this thing. It's like we do these things. We put our head down. We throw money at these things that we don't understand holistically. And I don't mean that in terms of holistic, in terms of like, you know, Dr. Merkel or something. I just mean like, if we're going to do this, we have to understand all implications of what we're doing. And we have to understand that this thing can't operate on a timeline. But then you start getting the money, or the state, whatever country you're in, it doesn't seem to be working well anywhere. So I don't believe Cuba has cures like communists say they do. So I don't. I know it's insane when you actually look into that. You're like, that you're completely wrong. Like they also think Fidel Castro threw like 97 miles an hour and stuff, like from the pitcher's mound. Like it's insane, the propaganda. So I don't believe this is succeeding anywhere, and I think it's just because we're bypassing years and years of stuff because we're so scared of dying without finding the answer. Our generation dying without it. And it's like, no, I do actually believe in like the right side of history, despite what like libs do with that actual sentence. Like, I do believe that like it's okay if we don't get the answer now. We just need to set a nice precedent and get people on the right path to where like people, you know, a couple hundred years from now have the fruits of that labor. And it's okay, because I do believe in a collective conscious. I do believe in an afterlife, and I do believe that there's actually like, it's not just a separate realm. I do believe that like part of our soul, I am a Christian and a Catholic, and I do believe in like heaven and stuff like that. But I also believe that like there's more to heaven than we know. And I think that you can divide. I do think that you will, if you do well in your life, you will see the fruits of it, even if you're not there, I guess is what I mean.
Yeah, and it's almost like I'm thinking of like that DFW thing, where like David Foster Wallace thing, where he said in that speech, like these most famous speech listeners, right? This is water. I know a lot of listeners probably know it, where it's just like where he talks about the cliches, the myths, these things that, you know, Prometheus, he's like, these are actually life lessons. Like, these are little bits of advice. And the reason that they're cliche now is because they're true. These kind of little bits of like, you know, you can't get water out of a stone, right? These kind of like little things that like, you know, they're metaphors, they're cliches, or like the stories of like, the Greek mythology or anything. And this is something that Jordan Peterson does too. He's been doing it with like the kind of Christian stories and stuff, where he's kind of even if you're non-believer, I think he points out the kind of that part of it, the true kind of advice part of it, where it's like, it's kind of like things to live by, how to live a happy life in these kinds of things. So if you're trying to be like a Prometheus thing, if you're stealing something and like giving it, you know, and getting punished, like this kind of, it's telling you to not do that, you know, like it's telling you to not mess with nature. In
all
ways.
Mythology. All mythology punishes shortcuts and bypassing. That's right, what they punish it. It's punished every time. Why do we think it's going to be different? Oh, it's mythology. It's like, all right, is it? You know, if I told you, if you know, 1,000 years from now, I told you exactly verbatim about George Floyd and COVID and all the stuff that happened in 2020, you'd think it was mythology. So I mean, regardless, yeah, maybe that stuff, stealing fire from the sky gods and all that. Okay, yeah, maybe that didn't happen verbatim, but that action in a smaller scale happens all the time, and we do it honestly in our most important field, which is public health. It happens all the time. And it's like, and these doctors, like, they go to, I will say, doctors, they, every time it happens in this book, it happens in every other book that's about doctors, they always think, well, I thought I was going to school and doing all this stuff to make humanity better. It's like, can you at least admit that you wanted the personal fame and glory, though? Can you at least admit that? Because every doctor I know, everybody I know that goes into the medical field beyond the nurse, I think nurses are often saints. Truly, I think nurses are really good. I for the most part, there are a lot of free thinking nurses, and a lot of them got fired during. A lot of them got fired during COVID. Like, a lot of them did because they didn't succumb to, or they didn't bend the knee. But a lot of doctors, a lot of scientists, there is a glory element, and I don't even think that's like shameful to admit. If I'm a professional athlete, of course I want to be the best, and I want to be known as the best. But it's weird when you're a doctor, you have to pretend like you don't want that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like I just feel like they tell the public a lie rather than them by saying that they kind of believed in a lie. It's like, nah, man. You the minute they told you could make this amount of money, retire at 55, and just absolutely tear up the golf course for the rest of your life and ride your bike and complain about proper bike lanes in your city. Like, for the rest of your life, you can do that. And like, I wish they would admit that, but they can't, because then it opens up it kind of weakens the fortitude of the institution of public health, and people will lose trust if they find out doctors are actually humans that have human flaws too, that aren't to be trusted dogmatically. Like, it's crazy.
And it goes back to that kind of like the being liked, the kind of what we talked in the very beginning, like kind of the reputational damage of some of these things. If you go out on a limb, right? Like, because again, in COVID's a great example of it from just recent history, where it's just like, if you were a doctor that did do that, you were getting brought before the licensing boards in your state, and you were getting like, you risked losing everything in that. And this is a good segue to kind of this line in the book where he talks about, I think it's Jack that says it, or maybe it's Kevin, where he says, prisoners of our own creations, kind of like, and I thought that was like a great, like, kind of sum up theme
Absolutely.
of the book here. Like, kind of, we prisoners of our own creations. I thought it was a very monster movie too, like kind of, the ultimate monster story, Frankenstein and stuff, where you kind of create this thing and then you're kind of trapped by it. But I think, we could extend that out even broader, where like your actions, like, your things that you create. Even you see this online in podcasting, people become like trapped by something they did 2 years ago or something.
Yep.
Like you kind of get trapped in your own creations. And I don't know, just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can't stand it. I can't stand when people like, first off, truly, I sound like a doctor, but like, you do this shit, you go on a microphone because you're tired, because nowhere else, nobody wants to hear you anywhere else. You have to act a certain way at your job. Hell, like, I'll tell stories to people in real life and they're just like, please just go say that somewhere else. Like, I'm an intense guy and I talk a lot. And the reason you do that, you do this. And I don't believe I'm a person that intentionally tries to piss people off. Like, I don't believe I like force myself into contrarian takes a lot of times. I don't believe that. I believe that's true about a lot of people. I believe that's like a rush for a lot of people. I don't. I just think it's like, there's like, well, I can't have this take because that might make me a leftist, when the term leftist got defined by this random anonymous guy in my replies. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like, that's fine. So you can't just admit that you think this way about something. You're worried about tanking like your 900 follower Spotify podcast because of that. It's like, dude, just say it. Just say it. Just take what comes with it. Like, and podcasters are scared to be hated. That's what's crazy. A lot of people podcast to be liked. I fall into that a little bit as well. But I understand it's wrong, because like, dude, if you listen to like Bill Simmons or like old school radio guys, they know that like 40% of their audience actively hates them.
Yeah.
Like, especially in like sports, which is like, I kind of tune, if I love a sports guy, like I agree with like everything he says, doesn't happen often, I kind of don't care that much. And I kind of don't, but if I'm like, something crazy happens and I'm like, I got to hear Bill Simmons, he might have like a retarded ass take about this. And sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes it's like, wow, this is really cool. But it's like, people are so scared because like podcasting through Twitter or like through a Twitter thing, it's like, it is kind of a friend simulator. I know it's kind of kind of a lazy thing to say. It's kind of like I might piss this one guy off who's scared to show me his face, who's scared to tell me his real name and all that stuff. But I don't want to piss this one guy off because then he's gonna go in full screenshot mode and talk about how I'm the cathedral of neoliberalism or whatever. I don't whatever. I don't know. It's like, dude, I don't care about any of that stuff. The minute somebody acts that way towards me, like a hall monitor, I immediately, it's like, dude, I have a real job I go to where that happens. Right. I'm not going to do that here.
There's like an incentive for it too. And I think in the podcasting space is a good, maybe just because we're both involved in it and this kind of like creating something here and then feeling like, oh, should I do that? Or you do have these little moments of like, you're like, oh, will we alienate the audience? And obviously, like, the thing is to just do it anyway. But, like, I definitely understand people feeling like, oh, I shouldn't do that. It's going to lead to this, whatever. I'm going to lose, especially if you're monetized or something. Oh, I'm going to lose money. I'm going to lose, like, whatever. People are going to start, attacking the YouTube channel, whatever it is. Like, there is that kind of, and that's a stupid thing, but, that happens now, too. You do kind of get trapped.
Yeah, you get trapped, but like you have to understand that like a lot of your heroes went through shit, man. And like a lot of your heroes it's another thing. It's this other death. Not only do I have to get credit, but I have to have it in my lifetime to where I can enjoy it. It's like, dude, a lot of your favorite people did not get popular until they died or were not deemed correct until they died.
Right.
Like case in point, Michael Crichton.
Yeah, I was gonna say Crichton.
Like Crichton, and then also like Philip K. Dick, who you might not say he's correct, but like people did not give a shit about him nationally until Blade Runner came out after he died. Like, but you realize, we just covered him on Gain of Fiction. You're like, okay, this guy's an insane communist man. Like, he's an insane man. Definitely not an alpha male, but in between the lines, there's a lot of really cool things and a lot of things we all suffer with. Whether we might handle it a little bit better, just we might be a little more fit for society. But a lot of you have to be comfortable. Like you have to be comfortable shouting into the void or against or like upstream. Like where everybody else is going one way. People want the credit for like. That's why I get mad about like, Daily Wire guys like finally stumbling into the truth sometimes. and then they're able to monetize off of that and go crazy. It is annoying, but they're a couple years late on it because they tested the water. They pushed another penguin in to see if there was sharks. They waited for that guy to be in there. And I don't feel comfortable being that guy. And I've said to myself, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. The rest of my life, I might not get what I want out of it.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it for the people that care, and I'm doing it for Psi because it's my best friend, And it's like there's an element to that where it's like it becomes like exercise. You know what I mean? You can exercise all you want. You might get hit by a bus, and that's always what people say when they don't want to exercise. Like, well, I could just die of anything. It's like, yeah, but you want a good quality of life, and if I don't do this, my quality of life goes down. So.
Yeah, and like when you're part of those big corporations too, especially like big media companies, like you are kind of trapped in that creation, right?
You are
trapped in the machine, and like if you want to, oh, should I couch this? Should I not say this quite yet? And I think there's like a drive for contrarianism too. Like there's kind of like the way the media landscape, especially social media, sets up people to search out these kind of contrarian takes, as like alternative takes on things and shit. And like I remember Peter Thiel has this famous quote, and I know some people get off on me for bringing up Peter Thiel, but I think he gets a really bad rap. Like, sure, he's Republican or whatever, but like the guy's pretty fucking smart. Like, and like has said a lot of smart things over the years.
Of course he is. Yeah. He's smart as hell.
And he said this where he just said, he's like, look, people call me a contrarian. He's like, he's like, it's not about being contrarian. He's like, it's about being right. It's about being correct. Like, if you're contrarian and you're wrong, it doesn't matter.
Is the same way. She sounds like actively, because a lot of times she's often talking to somebody who's just not on her level. So it just sounds like she's just actively trying to ruin that person's life and she's very intense too. So that's another thing. And she's just a confusing looking woman. Like people don't know what to think when they look at her. I still don't. I'm like, what is going on there?
Yeah.
But
she's
right.
Fast talker. Yeah.
Yeah. She's correct. And like the only person I ever saw actually handle her well was Charlie Rose. Who was like he knew it. I mean, in my opinion, the best interviewer ever. But he was able to kind of play dumb like her enemies a little bit, just to get her to get to a certain point that actually solidifies her point instead of meandering. And Like I love that style. Like Charlie Rose, Crichton, and all those people he would have on, he would kind of play the straight, like, even if he was that guy, he just knew like he was talking to somebody very smart to get that out of them. We don't even have that anymore. Like I love Rogan, but he's not that guy.
He doesn't have the
like
capacity.
he's not.
Yeah.
No, and I love him for that. I think that's good. Like I think it actually helps that he doesn't, because he just kind of lets good people just go up there and like say their piece and gives them the best platform you could ever ask for in the current society. But we don't have that person, that kind of like equal person to get the best out of people. And it is interesting, like with the having a boss, right? Because that's what all this medical stuff is. It's like, I wish we did have like freelance doctors. Like I know they get a bad rap, but like those old school like bloodletting doctors from back in like the Washington era, like I wish that was still an option. Like I just wish look, I'll sign whatever paperwork you want. I wish I could have that guy that just knows me personally and just comes to my house and isn't worried about violating this, and this. I'll be like, look, bro, like I take what I take to be healthy, but if I have a problem, can I have you come on? I want to see what you can do for it. I'll look, if it goes bad, it goes bad. But like the fact that that's not even allowed is crazy. Like for me to just do that one-on-one, you know, or a doctor to agree to it is what's not allowed, I guess.
You see people do that only when there's like with a cancer diagnosis and nothing else is working or something. That's when you see people be more okay with going to like a guy who lost his license for some experimental thing.
Go to Mexico. Like there's a lot of alternative places, which, you know, look, if I thought those people were just killing people, I would be like, cool, that's my Depop agenda then if I was the government. Like, but I don't know. I don't think you burn down those laboratories and arrest the doctors if they're not at least a little right. You know, like that. Look, I am not a person. I know what I feel better about doing. I tell people, look, if you want to keep going to your doctor, if you want to brush your teeth with that toothpaste, if you want to do any of that, I will never stop you. I believe free will is more important than anything in the world. So I think I am kind of like an annoying libertarian at times that I think pisses people off, where I'm like, no, dude, I don't want to ban this.
Right.
You know, we don't need to ban this. We don't need to ban that. It's like, I want people to want the right thing. And it might be utopian of me, but I also see way more utopian ideas out there. So I don't think, but like what I was saying about having a boss, like I would hate to be like one of those doctors where I'm like, I'm a genius, top of my class, all these people. And then I have to like respond to somebody. Like, I don't work that way. I do not respond well to authority a lot of times, especially incompetent authority. If I do believe, and it happens. If I work for people that aren't as smart as me. Like it's not even to brag about me. It's more so indicting on their part. And I just kind of like, are you really trying to like tell me something right now? You know, and it drives me up the wall. It gives me good content.
Right.
But, you know, if I didn't have that or wasn't able to put that out to the world, it did drive me up the wall for years. But it's like the idea of having a boss is so like for something you're so passionate about. Like if like these doctors claim to be, it's like, man, I don't know what the alternative is. I think we've kind of made our bed a little bit, and it might have to fully collapse, which after 2020 and after a lot of people, after a lot of Albini situations, perhaps it might.
Like the Raymond Lyons afraid of Taylor Cabot or whatever, his boss at the drug company. Yeah, dude.
They're shaking, dude. Taylor Cabot is this kind of like a Book of Exodus night plague that's like looming over everybody, and they're constantly smearing blood over their door. Like they're just everyone's doing that. Taylor Cabot says like 8 things in the book, 8 lines.
Yeah,
like he barely ever says anything, but his presence alone is just enough to change everything. He's on the flight. The way Raymond Lyons speaks is different, and it's like I thought this was just about public health, man. Like it should be a marketplace of ideas, right? Not dogma.
Yeah, for sure. Final question, Glenn. What do we think of the ending for this bad boy? And, you know, some books like this, they don't always have, like, the best, like, oh, my God, endings. Yeah. You know, they're just kind of a fun ride. But, like, what did we think of this?
I don't love it. I didn't love it. It was it kind of blew its wad after the escape from the where the soldiers were drunk in front of the house. I think it kind of blows its wad there, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with a book blowing its wad at a certain time. I think it's right to do that. Like I said, I kind of wanted a little more death, a little more drama and turmoil. Like I think that trip goes pretty smooth to Isla Francesca. It's like there's hippos in the water, dog. Like what? Like they like not even tear up the boat a little bit, you know, just like a little bit of more drama would have been nice. And I don't know about you, I don't write, so and I really am going to try my best to not be a writer of at least novels, just because I want that innocence of a reader reading all the time that authors never can get back.
Right.
When they're a lot of people that write, they're not able to read a book as a reader anymore. Just like a guitarist is never going to listen to rock as a listener. He's going to listen as a guitarist. And I still want that. But at the time, like, I got to ask, is it hacky to like solve everything in the epilogue? Do you think?
It's definitely a certain type of book, right? Like this is why everybody like, there's like the literary snobs that only read like these high end, like kind of these, like, super like cerebral kind of things. And one thing they'll shit on books like this for, and this is the reason that I purposely include books like this. Yeah, because I want to go against that. But I just think, there's something like that. Cause like, I mean, obviously there were a lot of loose ends and it does kind of tie it up perfectly with a little bow. But like, given what this book is, it's not like although it does have moments of like philosophical kind of stuff about humanity, like we talked about, like during this time, like, the animal rights, and then kind of like the ethics and are we doing this to save people? Or are we doing this for like personal gain, like Nobel Prizes or whatever? But it does kind of like, okay, like, and that like, cop Lou just kind of tied everything up for him at the end. He just like comes in for that 2 pages. It's just like, well, everything's good. They're in jail. Like,
and it's a series. It's also a series too.
Right,
so like these are standalone books. Like, because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, bro, like if I've thwarted an entire operation, which is billions of dollars, like, I mean, we're talking about creating new life forms, like full islands worth of like military bases and stuff. If I thwarted that, like, I'm like, well, back to the United States where no one can find me, like I'm sure in the next book, Jack and Laurie are getting sought after by some big conglomerate. So I do. It's a series, so I do have to. That's fine. The ending's fine in that sense because book 4 is going to be on the way, dude. So we're going to read book 4 or whatever. And I want to read Coma because I feel like Coma's a little grittier in the way that it has to be.
In the way that it's like harvesting humans for organs. Too.
Yeah. And there's a lot of drama in Coma. Like, and perhaps I want to know, did Crichton infuse some of that as the director?
Maybe,
or is that in the book? And I want to, because that's a like a 70s medical thriller, I bet is nasty. Like, like I want to read that. Now I extended the offer out to you to do it on our show sometime. I think that'd be kind of fun. I think that'd be fun because I love the movie, and I want the excuse to watch the movie again too. It's good. It's such a good movie. But I really enjoyed it, and like you said, I don't like when anyone's like books have to be this.
Right.
I'm like, no, the books are freedom. I think books are complete freedom.
Yeah.
Now they have the freedom to fail.
Right.
It has to connect with enough people to get you to write another one a lot of times. But I get mad. I don't care what format somebody follows. I don't care if it's tight literary, or if it's a sprawling literary stream of consciousness. I don't care if it's tight crime fiction. I don't care if it's dialogue driven. I don't care if it's just boomer bestseller medical thriller. Their books are all about freedom, and I hate when I see people not taking advantage of that.
Even this, it combines a bunch of shit. Like it combines like kind of the crime stuff, the medical stuff. Yeah. It combines the detective.
It's fun.
Like
and they're palate. These books are palate cleansers to me. Like I don't. Anytime I read, like I read, Brothers Karamazov, and it's like I loved that book, and I loved being punished by that book. I loved I loved being a sub for it. I loved every day just being like, fuck, I'm 5 a.m. before work trying to cram a few pages in, and I don't know what the fuck I'm reading. Like, and then at the end, just being so rewarded. As I felt like I ran a marathon. But then also I'm like, bro, let me just pick up this Mickey Spillane novel. Absolute male decadence. Like, never gonna win any prizes for anything, but gonna sell 1 million copies. And look, this book is perfect for that too. I'm reading Lolita now, which is like completely different. It's just an absolute like masterclass of language is happening in that book, and that's not what Robin Cook does. But books are freedom. You can write anything you want, and you have as many pages as you want to do that. So I want to see more people explore that freedom.
And even that, like, I just interviewed this he's basically like one of the leading crime scholars for like Noir and stuff, and like he was saying like so much of like even stuff like Lolita, I mean, that's kind of like a guy on the run story at a certain point. Like it does kind of weave into this kind of, they're hiding they're like trying to not get caught. Like there's this kind of like, you know, suspense, kind of what people would call like
100%.
poppy elements to it, and like
Yeah,
all the best stuff has that stuff, man. Like even like,
the plot. Yeah, plot is important, but language is important. It's all important. It's people have these debates: is plot better than or do endings matter? And yes, the answer is yes. All those things are important. But I don't want to see somebody following a rule because they think they have to.
Right,
And I'm like, dude, there's no one way to do it. I don't know. That's one thing I've learned from Gain of Fiction. There is no one way to write a book. Truly, film has more rules. Even though I think it's a wonderful medium, film has more rules because people stumble into a theater. The buy-in to watch a film is not a lot. Like there is a relationship you have with a reader where a reader's like, I'm going to sit down and read 350 pages from you. So you get to do whatever you want. But like in film, it's like, bro, I got an hour and 45 minutes. What are you gonna do? You know, there's this TikTok. I'm gonna see another movie next week too. So you know, try to stay in my conscience for longer than that. TV is even less, and a YouTube video is 3 minutes. So people click out of that after like 25 seconds if it's not interesting.
My metric is always like, is it good? Like, you know, I don't care what you do.
Exactly.
Is it
objective.
Good? Yeah.
And we can talk about why it's good, but like there are things that are good, and it's fun to talk about it. But like I only like talking about actual stuff I like in terms of like books. Like there has been a couple times, and it's a couple times the guests, you know, might have flaked out too and stuff, but like there have been a couple books I've picked up and I'm just like, nah, like I don't want a podcast about hating this book.
Right.
Like it's not fun to do that. Like it's not like people might think that shows integrity, but it's like, no, bro, like people read, but reading is not this stock American activity like it used to be.
Right.
And I'm trying to get more people to find books that they like rather than like realizing that I couldn't get past page 11 of Naked Lunch. You know, like I don't think that it's not for me. I love the Cronenberg movie. I don't pretend to understand what it is, but it's a fun journey that you go on. But like, that's not the book.
Yeah.
The book is I hate junkies, dude. I just hate listening to junkies talk, dude. It's so annoying. Same. So like, and Burroughs, look, if that's what he's going for, he succeeded, and I'm just not in. I don't know. I want readers to be a little bit more patient, but I want writers to see that there are patient readers out there and actually write the book that they want to write. Because right now, like now that it's tough to really do like a big bestseller, like I'm talking bestseller. There are niche audiences that buy books. I understand that, especially like extreme horror and things like that. Genre stuff is really popping right now. But like for anybody that wants to write that massive novel, like do it for you. And I think readers can pick up when you're doing something for you. I think a lot of people right now, after the last couple of years, I don't know that the pendulum's swinging back on cancel culture. I have no idea if that's the case, but I do think people want authenticity a lot now. And I think people value that. And I think the literature is the perfect medium for authenticity.
And they want something a little naughty too. Like they want a little.
Oh, get like nasty.
Exactly.
That's my Robin Cook, dude. And I know Robin Cook. Look, this was when books were just huge. Everybody was buying books back then. So he's like, bro, there's plenty of that you can read out there. But yeah, I want it. Like I want gross stuff. Like look, my wife reads a lot of contemporary fantasy, and I know there's nasty little things in there.
Right.
I know there are, and that's cool.
It's
like
entertainment.
I think that's great.
Yeah, like it's like you want to see people do bad things. Yeah, like
nasty things, or like just kind of like deep like primal things. You know, like where you're just like like kind of this like primal thing that's like we're supposed to be eradicating in modernity. You know, like but it's like I don't know. We still watch UFC. We like seeing people get their fucking heads bashed in. So you know, and we love drama. We love taking a perfect life and ruining it. We love all these things.
Right.
So I want to see authors do that, and I want to see readers have the patience. I think that's when we get into a true. I think that's when books are back, because I think readers have a job to do too, and their job is really to just shut up, because everybody's a critic now because YouTube exists.
Oh yeah.
Everybody feels as though
need takes.
You know, you can hate on Roger Ebert all they want, but I'm sorry, people cared what Roger Ebert said. They don't care what you say. Like the royal you, I guess. But like the people care about that. But I don't know. To me, like just shut up and read the damn book. You'll probably like it most of the time if it's a
Right.
well-written book. And yeah, this is a well-written book. It's a well-written book. It has a lot. Robin Cook is following rules. He's following a template clearly, but it's well-written and it's fun and it went down like nothing.
Yeah. Nice little palate cleanser, as Glenn said.
Palate
Glenn,
cleanser, dude.
that was all I had, man. This has been awesome, dude. Thanks again. For
Oh,
coming
thanks.
on, man.
I hope we didn't destroy your beautiful academic literary podcast.
No, dude.
Yeah. No, you've always been great, and I think I was glad when you started this. I think we've been talking before you actually, or right at the advent, I think of starting Heavy Board, and I'm glad you do it. I think we just need more things like that. You're going to be back in the lab with us for sure. I mean, it's good. It's fun to talk. It's just fun to talk about things you like, man. I want to do it every time, and I love when people curate things for me. They'll be like, "You'll love this book, dude." Yeah, that's the beauty of putting out a couple thousand hours worth of my brain, is that it's actually really easy for people to guess what I like. And I you can be prideful. You don't know what I like. It's like, I'm like, fuck, you know exactly what I like, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Sick. Yeah. So yeah, I get really excited by that. So I'm usually like, people send me recommendations, and sometimes I'm like, bro, I got a huge list. I don't know when I'm gonna get to that, but that sounds cool. Thank you. And it opens up a world. So I'm down to do this anytime. So if you
we
got
definitely
anything,
have you come back, dude. We gotta have both.
Yeah, and like I said, let's do a coma episode later in the year. I think that would be really fun to revisit.
Oh, yeah.
Robin, let's get early Robin Cook. Let's see what early Robin Cook was
I don't even know
about.
what his
I
first
just
book
want to see.
was.
Yeah, like his mixtape era, dude. Was this his mixtape era? Where he was kind of be getting a little nasty, gross. Like I want to see if that was there, or it's just the template that he's always used. You never know. So I'm curious.
Well, hell yeah, man.
Thank you, dude. I really appreciate it.
Heavy.
Bored.
Heavy.
I am heavy.
Bored.
I may say male is entirely hostile. No! Inner
Resources.
life, friends, is boring. We must not say so. Are you radioactive now?
Inner.
Resources, American resources.
Being bored?
Some activities are intentional, right?
It shows such a lack
Heavy.
of gratitude for life. Bored. I aspire to boredom, I
Heavy.
should say.
Bored. Heavy.
I am heavy.
Bored.
Has you the night sweats and the day sweats, pal? Pal, I do.